He healed instantly, but he was deemed useless and expelled from the party. Now he is a dark healer working in a slum clinic, saving those rejected by others. His name is whispered in the alleys because he does not just heal, but rewrites the boundaries of life and death. Will he be able to heal not only others, but himself? Let's find out. This story begins in the Adventurers Guild. Aston, the commander of the group, called the protagonist Xenos for a talk. When he arrived, his entire team was assembled. The commander turned to him and said that he had done absolutely nothing lately and therefore they no longer needed him. The protagonist was amazed. What was Aston saying? After all, he had been helping them all the time. It was his job anyway. The commander replied that all he had done was stand aside. They would no longer need his damn healing magic. They had become stronger. No one would hurt them. Xenos objected. If any of them were hurt, he would immediately use a healing spell. Besides, he used magic that enhanced their abilities. Aston rudely cut him off. Healing magic requires casting, and if he was injured, it would be interrupted. He would not be able to do anything. He sighed and continued that now they would be working with royalty and aristocrats, so they wouldn't like having a guy from the slums with them. The protagonist exclaimed with offense because he told him that they were partners. After these words, the whole team laughed. Aston said he still didn't understand anything. They were just using him. Nothing more. He was from the slums, which meant that he was only happy when he was fed and accepted into the team. And if he found himself in danger, no one from the team would lift a finger to save him. It was very painful for the protagonist to hear this, but he didn't belong here from the very beginning. He knew that in this country there was division by classes: the royal family, the aristocrats, the townspeople, and the poor. He was used to humiliation, so he stayed in a modest room, where the only furniture was a bed and a table. Although no, he was glad that he had a room at all. However, he honed his skills because he was happy to help Aston, who took him from the slums. Even if he had nowhere to study magic, he studied on his own wherever he could. Even when he was mistreated, he tried his best. He did his best, and now he is kicked out of the team. Aston flipped a coin, threw it at the feet of the protagonist, and said, "That's it, he is no longer with them." The protagonist looked at the coin and asked what it was. Aston mockingly replied, "It must be the first time he sees such a thing. It is a gold coin. This is the payment that a poor man like him will never earn in his entire life." The commander came closer to him and continued with disdain that he can't believe that their team had such a worthless person like him, and let him just try to tell anyone anything. The protagonist thought bitterly, so this is money for silence? Well, fine, so be it. Aston pushed him away, said that the conversation between them was over, let him get out of here, and closed the door in front of him. No one in the team really understood who they owed their strength to, and even the protagonist himself did not yet know what this bitter parting would turn out to be for him. He walked down the street and thought in confusion, what will happen now? Even if he continues to be an adventurer, he is just a poor man and will not be able to register in any guild. Suddenly, he heard men's voices, turned around and saw bandits. One of them told the second that they were idiots. What were they thinking when they shot at her? The second began to justify himself. He wanted to make money on this, but she kept running away. The protagonist approached them, saw a little girl with an arrow in her back. The second continued that she was going to die anyway, so what now? The first bandit began to scold him again. How could he even shoot an elf? The protagonist called out to them and asked, did they shoot a child? The bald bandit said, what? The second one answered that she was his slave. The first one told the protagonist that he should go his own way and not interfere in this matter. MC answered that he would buy her then. He took out a gold coin, showed it to the bandits and asked, would this amount be enough for them? The second one was indignant. Was he stupid? She was already a dead man. But the first one interrupted him and said that they had agreed. The elf was now his. Taking the money, they left, muttering that the girl would die anyway, so at least they had earned money. The protagonist turned to the girl and asked her, how is she? The girl groaned and opened her eyes. The protagonist resolutely took the arrow, abruptly pulled it out of the girl's body, and covered the wound with his hand. Lily groaned. Was she dead? The protagonist told her not to worry, he would help her. She said that there was no point, she was going to die anyway. He took his hand off her wound and said that everything was healed. Could she talk? The girl moved, realized that nothing hurt anywhere, got up, examined herself, and noticed that there was no more blood and nothing was bothering her. The protagonist answered her that he was a healer. He pulled out the arrow and healed her wound. Lily was surprised. The wound really was gone. She thought that she was destined to die. MC was embarrassed and said that she was exaggerating the significance of this scratch. The girl objected. Scratches? He was joking like that now, right? She moved closer to him. Tears appeared in her eyes. The protagonist was confused. What was going on? The girl took his hands in hers, cried and thanked him, calling him her brother. The protagonist had mixed feelings. He had not been thanked for healing for a long time. He had already forgotten what it was. He trained with sweat and blood, but his allies did not believe him when he used his magic without casting right in front of them. He did not even have time to explain anything. They treated him terribly. He asked Lily, "Were those men slave traders?" She told him that they were. They caught her yesterday. She had a chance to escape, but they caught up with her. The protagonist asked her name. Lily told him her name and asked him about the money. He answered, "She meant that gold coin?" Let her not care, he practically got it for nothing. The girl asked his name. He introduced himself to her, saying that his name is Xenos. She asked, "Is he a famous healer?" The main character said that he is self-taught, and few people know about him. He continued that being captured by slave traders is terrible. Where does she live? He could take her home. The girl sadly answered that she does not have a home. He felt even more sorry for her. She reminded him of himself in the past. But why would an elven child live on the street? He said out loud that everything was clear to him. They had a problem. The protagonist looked at her carefully and offered the girl to eat first. He took her to a cafe and ordered food for her. Lily was amazed at how delicious everything was. She asked if he was not going to eat. Xenos answered that he was not hungry. He would just drink some water. While devouring the food, Lily asked him if he worked somewhere. The protagonist looked at the plate with food. He was hungry and really wanted to eat, but he didn't show it. He answered her that, frankly speaking, he was kicked out of the team. He had nowhere to go now. Lily was silent for a moment, and then replied that at least they were together now. The protagonist sighed and noted that nothing could be done. He would look for a temporary job. At that moment, Probe came into the cafe, holding his wounded hand to himself, and asked for water. The protagonist noticed that there were scales on his cheeks. Was he a lizard man? He approached him and asked what happened to his hand. The man replied that nothing. Everything was fine. The protagonist looked at the wound and noted burn marks and bullet wounds on his hand. He asked the wounded man, "Was it a magic gun?" Probe confirmed his guess and added that he was caught off guard. He knows that he will no longer be able to use his hand, but at least he can relieve this unbearable pain. Xenos told him not to exaggerate. He will not say that the wound is small, but it will heal quickly. The lizardman was surprised. What did he say? The protagonist silently put his hands on the man's wounds and used the healing skill. The wounded man could not believe his eyes. His hand was as whole as before. There were not even any scratches on it. He asked the protagonist, "What did he just do?" Then Lily appeared and answered that her brother Xenos was a great healer. The lizardman said that since he was such a good healer, he would remember him. He took something out of his bag, put it in the protagonist's hand, said goodbye to them, and left. Lily asked her brother what it was. Xenos opened his hand and saw coins in his palm, which surprised him very much. Lily said in a businesslike manner that if they eat here, they must pay. A healer gets money for healing wounds. That's how it should be. The protagonist agreed with this child's arguments and asked her if she remembered what she said when he saved her life. She said thank you. Lily replied that it was because she was happy. The protagonist thought for a while and said that everything was decided. He would heal people. But then he became puzzled. He would not be able to get a license and open his own business because he was poor, so he would have to be an underground healer. Lily happily responded to his decision that she would help him. The protagonist wanted to object to her, but she said that now he was her master and she would follow him. Xenos agreed with her, but only until they found her a home. The girl was very happy with his offer. He thought that from now on, he would live the way he wanted. He would do what he could and get paid for it. If he could make someone happy, then he would not live in vain. The protagonist paid for the food, and they left the cafe. Xenos and Lily went to nowhere, hoping to find something suitable for themselves. On the way, they saw a dead city, in which one dilapidated house attracted the attention of the protagonist. The smart girl asked if he wanted to open his own hospital here, but there weren't even people here. Xenos confirmed her assumption and added that in the past there had been an epidemic and the city was abandoned. They would not be able to do business in densely populated cities without a license. He suggested that she go inside this building. Lily suddenly hid behind it. The protagonist asked her what was going on. She expressed her concern about possible ghosts in this house. Where many people die, monsters are born. What if Reyes is here? He asked her who she was talking about. Lily explained that in the hierarchy of the undead, Reyes is a higher demon. She looks like a human, but can kill with one simple touch. He grinned and they went inside. The girl called for light and a glowing ball appeared in front of her. The protagonist was surprised. Could she use magic? She replied that only simple spells. They looked around. The protagonist noted that, as he thought, this was a good place. It just needed to be repaired. At that moment, an incomprehensible sound was heard. The aura around changed, and a ghost appeared in front of them. Lily said in fear, "She is here. Reyes is here." The protagonist calmly said, like he knew that someone was already here. "This building is the most well-kept in the area." The girl called out to him. Let him come to his senses. What is he doing? The ghost whispered that she could smell life here. Camilla flew up to the protagonist, grabbed his face and asked him to give her his life. Lily, in fear for her master, called out his name. The protagonist put his hand on the demon's body and activated healing. The magical light threw the ghost aside. Xenos asked, "So this is the same raise?" If so, he killed at least 100 of their kind in the depths of the underground labyrinth. Lily was amazed. Hundreds? He turned to her, apologized and said that they liked this building. They would try not to disturb her, so she should share the place with them. Reyes flew up to him again and asked what he was talking about. His life was hanging by a thread. He used healing again. She was angry at his actions. The protagonist reminded her that she was the one who attacked him. She should not take it to heart. She whispered that she would not forgive him. He was the first person to insult her. Camilla, the queen of ghosts. The ghost called her subordinates to rise up, and at that very moment, the room was filled with other ghosts. Camilla gave them the order to kill this fool of a protagonist, and the ghosts silently moved towards him. Lily panicked and hid behind his back. The protagonist noted that he just wanted to discuss everything calmly. The ghosts came very close to them. He put his hand forward and activated the great healing. The squad of ghosts swirled around in a whirlwind and they disappeared into thin air. Camilla was amazed. Who was he? He answered her that he was a humble underground healer. She asked ironically, "Humble?" The protagonist said that he was very sorry, but they would only need the office and bedroom. Camilla was confused by such impudence, but she had no choice but to agree, and she replied that he could use the first floor. But the second floor was hers. Lily watched in shock. Her master was a real madman. The protagonist answered the ghost that he agreed to her conditions, and that he appreciated her help. He turned to the girl and said that they had succeeded. Lily, barely breathing from the fear she had experienced, replied that she did not even know whether to laugh or cry. A few days later, she was sitting at the reception desk in a clean office. She was bored, which she told the protagonist. He replied that at least he was able to quickly clean up. He would also repair the room, and it would become more like an office. She objected to him. Several days had passed, and there were still no clients. Maybe she should go out and call someone? The protagonist answered her that if she did so, she would attract the attention of the royal hospital. She said sadly, because no one would come to them like that. Xenos chuckled. Let her not worry about it. Someone would definitely come to them soon. At that moment, someone came in and asked, "Is this Xenos' hospital?" The girl was amazed, and indeed, they came. She said welcome to the visitor, and looking at him closely, she thought that he was somehow familiar. The protagonist noticed that he finally came. The lizardman asked him, did he know about his visit? The protagonist answered that his hand was burned by a magic pistol, and he is not an ordinary civilian. People like him have circumstances that do not allow them to visit ordinary hospitals. This is where the underground healer appears. Probe said that it took him a while to find him. This time he came to him with his sister named Zofia. After his words, a girl came to them and said that her brother told her that MC is a great healer. She went to him and asked if he would examine her. The protagonist answered, he doesn't know if he is really that good, but he will examine her. Inviting Zofia to sit down, he sat down opposite her. The girl told him that she was shot with a gun, the consequences of which he himself sees. It was a magical weapon, whose bullets are soaked in poison. Remaining in the body, the bullet began to decompose. He asked her in surprise, did she understand this just by looking at the wound? The girl answered positively because experiments were conducted on her before. He said that it was just terrible. She asked, well, so what, will he cure her? The protagonist folded his arms on his chest and answered, if she was wounded not so long ago, let her take out the bullet and everything will heal. Zofia objected because 3 days have already passed. MC said that in that case, her arm was already on the verge of death. It would be better to cut it off before the poison spread throughout her body. She understood him, but how much would it cost? He replied, 1 million van. Zond and Zofia were outraged. What kind of sum did he name? Zond exclaimed, 1 million van just for cutting off his sister's arm? Is he out of his mind? The girl asked her brother to calm down and said that it was a huge amount. Does the doctor know that she is a storm witch? He asked, is she the leader of the lizard bandits? Zofia answered positively, and added that so much money for such an operation is too much. Let him give her at least one reason why she should pay so much? Zond approached him, put a knife to his throat, making it clear that otherwise he would have a hard time. The protagonist calmly asked who told them that he was going to cut off her arm. It would be a pointless operation if it didn't regenerate afterwards, and that was pretty tiring. It didn't matter who his patient was, a worker or the king himself, Everyone had to pay for someone else's work. He wouldn't work for free. Zofia didn't understand what he was talking about. Regenerate her hand? She'd never heard of it before. He asked her if she was joking. Couldn't other healers do that? The protagonist laid the girl on an improvised operating table and said that they could begin. He extended his hand forward and activated the scalpel. She asked what it was. The protagonist explained that it was a magic knife. It was sterile and cut through tissue well. It also automatically relieved pain in the area being operated on. It would simply cut off the rotten part. Probe and Lily watched in surprise while Xenos began the operation. He removed what was needed and muttered that he was now regenerating. The protective magic was preventing bleeding. With repeated use of magic, the wound regenerates faster. After a short period of time, he finished, saying that he had cured the arm. Zofia examined the restored limb and noted that it was simply amazing. She had never met such a healer before. The girl showed her hand to her brother. He was also stunned by the result. At that moment, Camilla appeared. Zond exclaimed, "Who the hell is she?" The protagonist calmly replied that it was their neighbor, the ghost Reyes. Zofia was surprised. Reyes was his neighbor? Meanwhile, the ghost whispered that she really wanted the protagonist to fail. She wanted to take his life. Zofia was indignant. Why was she swearing so much? Xenos replied that she was a good person at heart. The girl objected, saying that it didn't look like it. The ghost got angry and puffed with displeasure. Sister Zond laughed and said that the doctor was simply amazing and no less interesting. She liked him, and they would come to them again. Lily said that they would be glad to see them, but they should not forget to pay. Zond and Zofia said goodbye to them and left. And so the name of the unknown healer gradually began to spread. Soon there was no end to the patients. One day, after another patient, Lily told him that she had made tea for him. He thanked her for her concern. Reyes also joined them for tea. The protagonist asked her if she was drinking tea with them again. She answered in the affirmative. Lily noted that he had been very busy lately. He replied that after visiting Zofia, the lizardmen from the Thieves' Guild began to visit here regularly. He helps them if they pay. She asked why they were injured so often. The protagonist assumed that they had a conflict with someone. In the slums, where the bandits' camps are usually located, there are 3 known groups of non-humans. One of them is the lizardmen led by Zofia. The other is a tribe of orcs whose bodies are as strong as steel. And the last are werewolves. He did not have time to finish speaking, because at that moment another visitor entered with his guards. It was Linga. She said that she would never have thought that a hospital could be in such a place. She looked at the protagonist and asked if he was the underground healer. The protagonist replied that he was, and asked who she was. She introduced herself as Linga, the leader of the werewolves. The protagonist replied that he had heard of her. They all came here one after another. And what did the leader of one of the 3 groups want? Linga noted that she knew that it was no longer working hours, but she had to come. The protagonist sighed and replied that he would take a look if it was an emergency. The girl suddenly poked him in the chest with her finger and said that the emergency was himself. No matter how much they fought with Zofia's subordinates, they were more and more alive each time. She thought that it was all strange, but it seemed that he was an excellent healer. In fact, she came here to kill him. He asked her tiredly, "They wouldn't be able to talk, right?" She took a weapon from one of her guard werewolves and said that if he died, then there would be no one to treat Zofia's subordinates, and then she would be able to defeat her. The girl slashed her weapon at the protagonist's body and was surprised. Not a single scratch on him? He replied that he had covered his body with protective magic. She got angry and called her squad for help. They pounced on the protagonist and literally trampled him into the floor, not giving themselves a break. When they got tired of beating him, he got up from the floor the same. Not a single bruise, not a single wound on him. The visitors were in complete amazement. Xenos asked her if she had had enough already. Linga was almost hysterical, but it couldn't be that everything had passed him by. Then she ordered her subordinates to destroy this building. The werewolves readily responded to her order. The protagonist advised them not to do this. Ling's subordinates had already begun to break down the walls of the building, saying that since they could not kill the protagonist, they would destroy the hospital. Let them not underestimate their strength. Suddenly, the head of the werewolves noticed why it had suddenly become so cold. Her subordinates were horrified to see who was emanating such cold, and in panic began to talk about how it was Reyes who had appeared, that it was her doing. The ghost really did fill the building with cold. The protagonist noted that he had known that she would appear, and told his visitors that they were neighbors. The ghost hissed at the werewolves. How dare they attack her fortress? The protagonist turned to her and asked her not to do it. He understood her feelings, but in his office they save lives, not take them. The head of the subordinates knelt before her and cried. She replied that he had persuaded her. Xenos thanked her for not getting angry. The ghost whispered that it was all for the sake of her fortress, and besides, it was now more comfortable here than before. Linga asked her squad in amazement, did they hear what she said? The girl turned to the protagonist, bowed her head before him, and asked for his forgiveness. She ordered her squad to do the same. Everyone bowed before the protagonist. They did not know that he was the master of Rays. Xenos wanted to say that he was not the master of the ghost, but the werewolves continued that they were showing him their sincerity. The protagonist could not stand it and exclaimed that they should all listen to him. But this time, he was not allowed to say, because at that moment an orc came in and asked if the underground healer Xenos was him. After the protagonist confirmed his assumption, he continued that he was here at the request of his leader named Levi. The protagonist noted how he knew that they would come here too. Lily was surprised. Did he know where from? He replied that the lizardmen had come, the werewolves had come, and now the orcs. The protagonist asked the visitor if the head did not come in person. Did it mean she was sick? The visitor answered that she could not move. The protagonist understood everything. If the patient could not come herself, he would have to visit the sick person himself. Waving his hand to Lily, he went to the orc leader. The orc accompanying him said, "This way," and led him into some room. He told Levi that he had brought an underground healer. A girl was sitting on the throne, her legs crossed. She said that this was great news and introduced herself to him. The protagonist asked how she knew about him. Levi replied that here, in the criminal world, in the slums, he was a celebrity. The protagonist was surprised by her words. She continued that the lizardmen and werewolves said that he was an excellent healer. But they didn't want to draw his attention to her, so they wouldn't tell him anything. That's what they said. That's how she found out. The girl asked him if he knew the reason why she couldn't move. He silently used his inspection skill and extended his hand towards her. She felt like something was touching her. She asked what he was doing. The protagonist replied that there were no wounds on her body, so he was checking her from the inside. He noticed that there was a hard lump in her stomach and a feeling of magical power. Was that a magic stone? She confirmed in surprise that he was right. She had an extremely powerful magic stone, expulsion, in her stomach. Magic stones are crystals full of magical elements. They have effects similar to magic. Among them, expulsion is the highest class of magic stones used for attack. The protagonist frowned and asked, did someone feed it to her? Levi giggled and replied that she had accidentally eaten it herself, mistaking it for a rice ball. The protagonist was dumbfounded. Did she have no brains at all? The girl chuckled again and said that as he could see, she was quite the glutton. Xenos replied that what he was about to say might sound funny, but if she left things as they were, one day it would come out naturally. She countered that this would not happen because she had accidentally chewed part of the stone's outer shell. There was not much time. Any wrong move and it would explode. The protagonist understood why she was not moving, and she was also afraid that her subordinates would get hurt. They should be taken away somewhere far away. Her loyal servants rushed to her, and as one, they said that they were ready to die with her. The protagonist asked, what about him? She replied that they would donate their wealth to him. She threw him the key. MC caught it. And to his silent question, Levi answered that if the stone exploded, the orc tribe would come to an end. It was better to give everything they had to him than to let the bandits rob them. She said that she heard that he was neutral and examined the children for free. She also really likes children. The subordinates laughed with her and said that they would follow her. The protagonist squeezed the key in his hand and asked how long ago she ate the stone. Levi answered that it happened recently. She sent her subordinates to him right after she swallowed it. When he used the spell, it was still in her stomach. He activated the magic scalpel and ordered her not to move. Then the protagonist carefully opened her stomach, stopping the bleeding with healing, which surprised her a lot. He told her not to bite her tongue and said that here it is, this magic stone explosion. At that moment, her subordinates were indignant. What was he doing to her? Let him quickly get away from her. They approached him with the desire to tear him away from their mistress, but the protagonist showed them the magic stone that he took out of the girl's stomach. The subordinates simply froze in place in amazement. Levi looked at herself, and not believing her eyes, asked him in surprise, what did he just do? MC calmly explained that he cut her stomach and pulled out the stone from there, and then closed her wound. She touched the place where he had just cut, realized that there was not even a scratch on that place, and asked him in amazement, did he know how to do something like that? The girl saw how he casually held the stone in his hand and warned him to be careful. One wrong move, and they would all die. He carelessly agreed she was right, squeezed it in his hands and said, like this. Everything around rumbled, the air thickened, the aura compressed so that everyone present felt it. Then a powerful explosion was heard, and suddenly everything dissipated and became quiet. The protagonist noticed that everything was over. The werewolves were surprised. He remained alive? The protagonist explained to everyone that he had covered his palms with protective magic. It hurt a little, but he had healed everything. Linga and her subordinates were amazed by what had happened. MC apologized for interrupting such an emotional scene, but he returned the key to the treasury to them. He gave the girl the key. She muttered that he could have silently taken the treasure. The protagonist replied that he was asking for payment for his work, and this operation did not cost a fortune. Linga laughed, hugged him, and said that she liked him. The protagonist was embarrassed. She continued that he was a real benefactor for the orcs. If something happened, they would immediately come to his aid. He muttered that he did not want that at all. Linga said that she was hungry and asked him if he wanted rice balls. The protagonist noted that he would not help her anymore. After some time, Lily was sitting at the counter and thinking about something intently. The protagonist noticed her condition and asked her if something had happened. She said thoughtfully that Zofia, Linga, and Levi often come here lately. He thought about it, and indeed, they come even if they are not injured. Zofia on Mondays, Linga on Wednesdays, and Levi on Fridays. Lily asked him if he knew why they came. He assumed that they had a lot of free time. The girl objected, such important people must be very busy. The protagonist replied that then he did not understand the reason for their visits. Lily suggested that maybe they fell in love with him. Reyes appeared and also said that she thought they were in love with him. The embarrassed protagonist answered them that all this was nonsense. After all, he was an underground healer without a license. Reyes smiled and said that no one could hide anything from her. They had a loving look. She had been living for 300 years, and could be sure of it. Lily wilted and said that now she was worried. When the protagonist asked about the reason for her worry, she answered that soon these three girls would fight for him and start a large-scale war. He protested. It was just ridiculous. Reyes turned to her and whispered that she should do everything to entertain her. Women in love are beautiful. Lily thanked Camille. The ghost flew to her floor. The protagonist asked puzzledly, and why did she come? The following Monday, Sophia came. She brought with her a whole cart of fruit for him and told the protagonist that she was thinking of starting a war with them. She asked him if he would go over to her side. The protagonist was very surprised by her intentions. On Wednesday, Linga showed up with a cart full of seafood as a gift to him and told him that she had decided to put an end to them and she wanted the healer on her side. The protagonist was even more surprised. What was she saying? On Friday, Levi showed up with fish and meat. She turned to him and said that she would destroy her opponents. After she left, the protagonist stood among all the gifts and Rain whispered to him, "Let him wait, they would have a war." It seemed that someone would die for him. He became angry and exclaimed that she should stop talking nonsense. Lily stood offended. The protagonist asked her why she was sulking. His head was already spinning. He said in despair, "What is going on? Battle of 3 girls for the underground healer is about to begin." And then the very day came when the heads of the 3 clans gathered in the arena. Zofia exclaimed, "Today she will show them who is the strongest here." Linga said that before she mercifully pitied them, but today everything will be different. Levi grinned and asked, "Do they think they can defeat them, the great orcs?" She expressed the hope that her rivals have already managed to say goodbye to this world. At that moment, the protagonist called out to them and asked them to wait a little. Each of the girls greeted him coyly. Sophia asked, did he come to dissuade them from war? Linga said that she adored him, but she could not fulfill his request. He calmly answered them that he was not here for this. He understands that all this is too absurd. It is unlikely that they would decide to fight because of him. In fact, interspecies hostility has been lurking for a long time. Suddenly his face changed and he shouted irritably that they can do whatever they want. It is their business. Lily also emotionally supported her master. Sophia noted that it was good that Dr. Xenos was not against their battle and asked the rivals, how about the winner getting him? Ling exclaimed that she was in. Levi replied that she was the only one here who was worthy of him. The protagonist listened to them and could not believe his ears. What were they saying? Lily sadly confronted the protagonist. He said that they were definitely not in love. Someone gave the command to go forward, and a fierce battle began. Each of the participants in the battle fought as if it was the last time. The subordinates followed their leaders and did not spare their strength. Almost everyone was wounded, and finally Zofia stopped. She was amazed. What was going on with them? She could not defeat her rivals, no matter how hard she tried. Levi also noticed. She kept hitting and hitting her opponents, but it was no use. She should have finished off several dozen by now, but they were almost unharmed. Linga noticed. How come they didn't notice that the wounds were healing too quickly? The girls immediately realized whose handiwork this was. They looked at the protagonist indignantly. He answered without a shadow of embarrassment. He said that he would not dissuade them from the battle. However, they are all his patients. If they are wounded, then he must cure it. After all, he's a healer. Zofia grinned. How cleverly he arranged everything. So, it is his duty to monitor their health? She could not believe that he was able to heal an entire crowd for so long. After all, he refused to join any race. She thought that he would not support anyone. The rivals looked at each other and said that then there was no point in their battle. The satisfied protagonist answered them that it was so. The girls realized that they would just endlessly beat each other and recover. Beat and recover, it would lead to nothing. The protagonist asked them, did they really want to continue? Then he would heal until they got tired of this boring battle. Of course, for a fee. The girls grinned, stood in a circle and threw their weapons on the ground in the center. Zofia said, well, you still have to pay. Linga supported her, asked, why then should they continue the war? Levi summed up that the time had finally come to end it all. They clenched their fists and swore an oath that the anger, resentment, hatred that had been passed down from generation to generation, they were tired of all of it. Now it was clear to them that this endless battle would lead to nothing. Now they would live in peace, and they sealed their alliance with their fists. And yet Zofia said that now they had another reason to fight. Linga proclaimed for Dr. Xenos. Levi noted that she would not lose this battle. The protagonist was surprised. What were they talking about? Lily thought that her master was in great demand. She asked him why he was trying so hard to help everyone. He admitted that one healer once told him that third-rate, underground healers were good for treating wounds and injuries. Second-rate ones save people's lives, and only the best healers are able to change the whole world for the better. But even being a third-rate healer, he hoped to bring at least a little benefit to this world. He fell silent, and the girl noticed that her master was thinking. She waited a little and called out to him. He asked what was wrong. She answered that she liked him very much. The protagonist noted that she was also dear to him. She sighed and muttered that he really did not understand, or was just pretending. The protagonist said that they should get ready to go home already. Lily asked if they were going for the money. He answered that they were. When they went outside, the three former rivals were waiting to walk them home. And just like that, a healer from the slums had put an end to a long-standing interracial feud. This high-profile event would undoubtedly affect the future of Xenos. In the Kingdom of Hazes, the commander of the Knights called his deputy. Krishna came to him and asked if he wanted to see her. He answered yes, he was waiting for her. The deputy commander named Krishna. She asked him why he had called her so suddenly. The commander told her that he had heard disturbing rumors. The girl asked again, rumors? He continued that it seemed that the long-standing war between the non-humans had suddenly stopped. They had decided not to feud with each other anymore. Krishna asked if he was joking. Everyone knew that in that area, there had been a long-standing struggle for supremacy. Maybe someone had just finally gained the upper hand and killed the others? She did not believe that they had simply made peace with each other. The commander replied that they were befriended by one man. He looked out the window at the city and continued that the kingdom had always had a strict caste system. The townspeople were unhappy with the poor, and the poor were at odds with the townspeople. This unbreakable balance had been maintained for many years. But suddenly someone appeared who was able to reconcile the three cruel races. This could become a national issue. As the protectors of order in the kingdom, they could not allow this to happen, so he called her. Krishna bowed to him and assured him that he could rely on her completely. She would not allow anyone to violate their foundations. The girl turned to leave. The commander said that he expected good news from her, the Iron Lady. At the same time, the protagonist, surrounded by his allies, came home and suddenly sneezed. The girls immediately became worried, sat him down on a chair. Zofia asked if he had caught a cold. She could warm him up with her fur. Linga noted that if he needed a strong and warm hug, she could help him. Lily said that she would brew him some tea now. The protagonist muttered that they were all clearly overdoing it. Let them please not interfere. He needed to concentrate. He began to heal Zofia's wounds. After a while, she said admiringly that she was simply delighted with his healing skills. Lily, standing nearby, holding a tray with cups in her hands, noted that it seemed like Zofia had not come as a simple guest for a long time. The girl agreed that in fact, the royal guard considered them criminals, which is why they were persecuted. Probe added that they often had to fight off these annoying people. MC asked if he remembered that he and his brother had once been seriously wounded in the arm. Zofia agreed and added that she was merciless. This was the deputy commander of the guard, the Iron Lady, a cruel girl who could kill without a shadow of regret on her face. Reyes noted with a smile that it would be problematic if such a woman laid eyes on him. Didn't he think so? The protagonist replied that he didn't care. It turned out that they were fighting with the royal guard. She said that she had a bad feeling about this. The protagonist explained that there was no point in worrying about something that had not happened yet. Will they have lunch soon? Sophia, Levi and Linga immediately said their food preferences with a smile. MC said in confusion. He didn't seem to have asked them. What kind of picky people were they? Hoped that he wouldn't have such difficult clients anymore. And that's how Xenos got into an endless line. After some time, Krishna came to their lands and asked in confusion, weren't these just rumors? She thought, did that man really manage to reconcile the three races? The girl called out to the lizard and asked if she could have a few words with him. She hadn't been here for a long time and a lot had changed here. She had never seen a werewolf communicate so nicely with an orc. The lizard explained that it was not surprising because they were no longer at war. Krishna said so, but they were, to put it mildly, on bad terms. What had happened? He jumped up from his seat and explained that she seemed rather suspicious. He didn't think he could tell her that. Just let her take it for granted. Wasn't it better that they lived in peace? The lizard began to walk away into the alley when suddenly Krishna caught up with him in a flash and pointed her gun at him. He asked fearfully, who was she? The girl seriously pointed out that she was the one asking the questions here. Where did that man live? The lizard replied excitedly that he wouldn't tell her anything. He had helped them a lot, they were in his debt. Even if she threatened him, he still wouldn't tell her anything. Suddenly, Zofia and Zond appeared passing by, and Krishna, fearfully letting go of the lizard, thought about not engaging in a fight with the leader of the lizardmen and her brother on their own territory. Wait, weren't their hands badly wounded? Why were they in such good condition? What the hell was going on here? After some time, the protagonist, being in the house, noticed that it became cool here. But at least it was calm. Everyone had finally left. Suddenly, Krishna entered the room and explained that she was a little lost. The MC, perplexed, replied that she was unlucky. She asked if he could tell her how to get to the city. At this time, Lily entered the room with a tray and asked if she was Xenos' new patient. Krishna quickly took out a gun and asked how dare he use her as a slave. She shot him and a lot of smoke appeared. Lily dropped the tray in fear and called out his name. Krishna noted that she cannot stand child kidnappers. She will make sure that he gets his due punishment. She is an elf, and he is a human. He is not her parent or master. Now she is free. She should not worry. She will arrest this criminal. Lily pitifully cried out that Xenos is not a criminal. He is her savior. He freed her from slavery. Krishna thoughtfully said that maybe she jumped to conclusions. She screamed hysterically that she shot him for no reason. The girl apologized and explained that she was just serious about her job. She needed to act quickly so as not to miss anyone. Now this guy will be unconscious for a while. Suddenly the MC's voice was heard, saying that they should have at least made sure that he was a criminal before shooting. At that moment, the smoke cleared and his appearance was visible. Krishna, perplexed, apologized and asked that she was glad that he was safe. But how did he manage it? The protagonist explained that he used protective magic. The girl noted that he must be joking. Simple protective magic could not stop a bullet from her magic gun. The protagonist replied that, as far as she could see, he had succeeded. Krishna approached him and asked if he was lying. There was not a scratch on him. Well then, does she think he is a famous mage? He has mastered protective and healing magic to perfection, and now accepts patients. The protagonist replied that this is not entirely true. She noted in bewilderment that she could not be mistaken. She is the deputy commander of the Royal Guard. Does he understand her level? MC asked in complete shock. She is the deputy commander of the guard? Krishna agreed and added that she is better known by the nickname Iron Lady. Maybe he has heard. She would be glad if he helped her in one investigation. After some time, they sat down at the table and Krishna explained that she came to the slums with a secret mission to find and arrest one person. MC asked, is she so easily telling this to a stranger? Girl answered, it is only so that they can cooperate. He has never caught the eye of the Imperial Guard. And this means that he is hiding somewhere. She thought that since he was also hiding, maybe he had heard something about him. The protagonist asked who exactly they were looking for. Krishna explained that they were looking for an arbitrator, the one who ended the war between the non-humans in the slums. They thought that their war would never end, but the situation had changed dramatically. As a guardian of order, she could not afford to simply forget about such an influential figure. Even under threat, the non-humans refused to talk about him. Apparently, he controlled their minds. She was ready to bet that he was a minion of the devil himself. The protagonist asked if she thought they should continue looking for him. It seemed that he did not want to be found, did not want to stand out. It was better to leave him alone. Krishna slammed the table angrily and asked, so he knows him? MC explained excitedly, he just assumed. She said that she could not leave him. One day he could go against the state and become a threat. Lily suggested, maybe he did not even think about such a thing? He's a bit greedy, but he really doesn't like it when someone suffers. The deputy commander of the Royal Guard shouted, so she knows him? Lily excitedly shouted back, saying that she doesn't know anything. MC started to lead her out of the house and said that it is. He will show her how to get back to the city, so she better get back quickly. She asked why quickly. By the way, why is the bed at the entrance? The protagonist thought it would be strange to call it a bedroom. He made an excuse, saying that he put it here to throw it away later. Krishna asked, then can she use this bed? This place is perfect as a base for a secret mission. Will she pay for the stay, or is he against it? MC reluctantly agreed, and they shook hands. The girl thanked him for his cooperation and promised that she will definitely catch the arbiter, the root of all evil. And so the number of women pestering him increased in the hospital. When it got dark, they were standing by the window. Krishna noticed that it was so quiet at night. The protagonist asked if she would return home after completing the mission. The girl noted that this was a city destroyed by the plague. Would the undead rise here by chance? MC mockingly agreed, saying that rays could go out. Was she really afraid? Maybe she should go back then? Krishna replied that he shouldn't try to force her to come back. Rays was the highest ghost in the undead hierarchy. They definitely wouldn't meet her here. The protagonist thought about it. They met here every day. At that time, Lily brought them tea. The deputy commander of the royal guard took a sip and apologized, saying that her sensitive tongue was her only weakness. MC noted that she had quite a few weak points. Suddenly, Lily sat on the protagonist's lap and made him stroke her head. Xenos was perplexed, wondering what was going on. She was acting spoiled even more than usual. Suddenly, Camilla appeared and explained with a smile that it was jealousy. The protagonist flinched in fear and shouted that she had scared him. She mockingly noted that she did not see her. MC asked why Lily would be jealous of him. Camilla explained that he was sharing a roof with a woman who had suddenly appeared on his doorstep, and she felt him getting closer to her. It seemed that he got along well with non-human girls, and at the same time he was not against giving the bed to the one who had shot him with a magic gun. Who would have thought that the girl who had attacked him with such fury would have a sensitive tongue? He thought that she would believe that his heart was at peace. So what should he do now? What should she do? The battle for his love was about to begin. MC ordered her to shut up and thought about it, but there was some truth in her words. Today she was clinging to him. Lily stood up abruptly and screamed. Now she was using the trick that Camilla taught her. She would not let him sleep tonight. After a while, she fell asleep on his lap. Krishna noted that she seemed to have good dreams. MC agreed and carried Lily to the bed. Entering the main hall, he asked what she was thinking about. The deputy commander of the royal guard explained. He said that Lily was captured by slave traders. Does he know them? The protagonist replied that he did not know, because they left almost immediately, and he prioritized treatment. Krishna said that she was sure that there was an illegal child trade somewhere here. She had investigated this case before the current mission. MC asked, "Is that why she shot him?" The girl explained that her hot temper is her only weakness. She investigated a variety of cases. The Steel Lady is the ideal of the Royal Guard, an indispensable hero for the citizens. No matter how many weak points she has, she will always be on the side of order. She wants to ask him something. He must be a master of defensive magic? She wanted to hear his opinion, precisely as a master in this field. If she mastered healing magic, would she be able to, for example, grow an arm? MC asked in confusion, what was she talking about? Krishna asked herself, what was she talking about? This is impossible, unless he is a saint or a high-class healer. When she was guarding the private area for aristocrats, she got into a fight with Zofia, the leader of a gang of thieves. And she inflicted a significant wound on her by shooting her in the arm. But when she saw her in the slums, there was not a scratch on her arm. She thought a lot about the image of the arbitrator. She wondered who Zofia had approached, and she came to the conclusion that if there was someone who could heal such serious wounds, then such a person must be very famous. MC thought that she was quite perceptive. Krishna added that she would start her investigation tomorrow. The arbiter, the instigator of the poor, and the root of all evil would definitely fall into her hands. The protagonist asked why she was so against the poor. The girl with a serious face replied that it was a long story. Her mother had died at the hands of the poor. She was a compassionate person, and the people in the slums were hungry and miserable, so she helped them with food. And one day, her corpse was brought home. They wanted to steal her wedding ring. Her mother had saved so many poor people from starvation, but no one could save her. That was the whole reason. She would become an ideal heroine and destroy all the bad people in the slums so that such a thing would not happen again. And then they began to call her the Steel Lady. That face was like an iron mask. From that day on, she forgot how to laugh. After some time, Krishna went outside and warned that she would return in the evening. Camilla told the protagonist not to worry. He couldn't do anything anyway. MC thanked her with a smile, and she remarked with displeasure that this girl was just getting on her nerves. After a while, Sophia came to him to get some treatment. The protagonist told her not to be so reckless. He wouldn't be able to cure her if she died. She said she wanted to tell him something important. She found out from her subordinate that the Steel Lady got wind of the arbitrator. She felt that he was in danger. If she found him, everything could go wrong. Suddenly, Krishna herself entered the house, saying that she was a little lost. Seeing Sophia, she quickly armed herself and shouted, "What was she doing here?" MC shouted in fear that they had all gotten it wrong. Camilla mockingly remarked that he was like a husband who had been caught cheating. Krishna asked why she was here. Sophia said that was her question. The deputy commander of the royal guard warned Xenos to be careful, because she was a real villain. The leader of the lizardmen noted with a smirk, it was the one with the gun who said that. She wanted to start a fight right here? Krishna replied that she was not going to destroy this place. Sophia shouted, then why didn't she just put that thing away? She said, let her ask her one thing first. What's wrong with her hand? It's completely healed. The one who healed that wound is the arbiter, right? Sophia asked seriously. So what? He healed the wounded. Let her answer her. Why shouldn't he have done that? Krishna explained that they were afraid of the arbiter's influence. Unrest among the poor could threaten the lives of citizens. Sophia noted that she always blamed the poor. Let her look around. Bad people are not only among the poor. She heard that the guards were investigating a child trafficking case. But did she know that it was run by the aristocracy? Krishna shouted that this was nonsense. The hotbed of illegal slave trade must definitely be in the slums. Sophia replied, of course, the aristocrat wouldn't let them catch him that easily. Not caught, not a thief, right? They had to move the children to a special room in the country house. Krishna pointed her gun at Sophia and said that she didn't believe it. If so, let him tell her who the criminal was. Sophia replied that it was Galendor. Krishna was surprised. Lord Galendor? He is a great man who dedicated himself to providing education for orphans. The lizard woman replied that he fooled everyone in this way. But she was wrong about the judge. This man does not judge them by their status, appearance, or past. He simply saves the lives he meets along the way. That this is why they value him so much. And if she gets hurt, he will even heal her. Unlike her, he does not equate the poor with criminals, and her sense of justice is just fake. Krishna got angry. What did she say? She aimed right at Sophia, but the protagonist covered the girl with himself. The deputy commander told him to step aside, but he apologized for interfering. But Sophia is still his patient. She was surprised. A patient? He apologized to her for not saying so right away and added that he is the judge. Krishna dropped the gun in surprise. The protagonist asked her for forgiveness. He did not want to make such a fuss. The girl objected. He was lying. After all, he is a master of defensive magic, not healing. He replied that, in fact, he can use both magic. Krishna raised her weapon and saying, who will believe this? She said that she had finally understood something. He was on the side of his half-human. She turned to the exit and said that she would go look for other hiding places. People needed a model hero, and she was not a fake. She left. Sophia apologized to him in a guilty voice. She had done such a mess. He calmed her down. It was not her fault. On the contrary, she should forgive him for making her worry. At that moment, Lily approached them with a confused look. The protagonist asked her what had happened. The girl answered that Krishna had gone in the opposite direction from the slums. Had she gotten lost again or something? The protagonist looked puzzled. That couldn't be. Most likely, she was not heading to the slums. Meanwhile, Krishna came to Galendor. He exclaimed that it was very unexpected and that the deputy commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard Division herself would come to visit him. She apologized to him for distracting him from his work. Galendor offered her hot tea. The girl gladly accepted his gesture of hospitality. Sipping the hot tea, she apologized. Hot is her only weakness. Galendor laughed and said that even the Iron Lady still has her weaknesses. He asked, so what did she want to talk to him about? The girl really wanted to tell him that she found out about the rumor that he was selling children. Naturally, she could not say this, although she came to make sure that all this was nonsense. But out loud, she answered, in general, does he know that thieves have made their way into the special zone? He replied that he heard something about a group of lizard thieves. The girl answered that everything is correct. They are trying to strengthen the defense, but it is simply impossible to cover the entire zone. She would like to ask permission to check the inner estates, the state of the theft prevention system, and high-risk areas. Galendor thought for a moment, then smiled and exclaimed that this was a great idea. He was free after dinner, so he could accompany her. Krishna replied that it was a great honor for her to be personally accompanied by the Lord. They began to walk around all the rooms in the building, including the kitchen, bathroom, and corridors. Having walked around all the rooms, Krishna thought that the rumors were lying after all. There was no need to come here. Galendor approached her and asked, well, how is everything? The girl answered that everything was protected much better than she expected. She would even say that it was perfect. He asked her if something was wrong. She pretended to be embarrassed, apologized to him, and asked if she could use the restroom before leaving. Gilendor chuckled and replied that there was no problem. Of course, she was allowed to do so. The girl walked and thought that all this was strange. Although Lord Gilendor was an aristocrat, his status was somewhere between the lower and middle rank, but despite this, the security here was too strong. She remembered that she had seen many guards in the backyard and thought that on top of everything was concentrated in the back. There was no way that the rumors were not so unfounded. She had been forced to hand over the magic pistol at the entrance, and now she was afraid that without a weapon, it would not be safe. Risking herself, she quietly slipped past the guards, went into the garden, and saw a well with a ladder leading to it. Without thinking twice, she began to go down it, thinking that all the water had dried up. When the girl went down, she realized that there was no water here. She could not believe her eyes, muttered that it could not be, but right in front of her she saw a wooden door. It seemed that she had no choice, the girl thought. She had to check what was behind that door. What if they really were keeping children there? She definitely had to check, because they needed help. When Krishna opened the door, she was astonished to the core. Behind the bars sat children with their eyes blindfolded. They heard someone come in and cried in fear. One of the children asked who it was. He was very scared. She hurried to calm them down, said that everything was fine, she would not do anything bad to them. They must be very scared, let them wait a little, she would help them. The boy became quiet. The boy asked her again who she was. Krishna wanted to introduce herself to them, but at that moment someone shot at her. It was Gilendor, who shot her with her own pistol. He exclaimed that, as he thought, the Imperial Guard's magic weapon is different. It can even be used to scare these young brats. Looking at the girl bleeding, he continued that he had a premonition that something bad would happen if he stayed too long, but he certainly did not expect this. He shot her again, and Krishna screamed in pain. Gathering all her willpower, she said that people like him, how dare he imitate the aristocracy? Gilendor replied that he had kidnapped dozens of such brats from their slums. He was the aristocracy here. Unlike the dumb cattle, he could do whatever he wanted. Krishna whispered forgiveness to the children for not being able to save them, asked forgiveness from her mother for not being able to become a hero. Gilendor burst out laughing and said that she looked pathetic, and an iron lady at that. Hierarchy is justice, and she would pay for such behavior with her life. Suddenly he heard his guards shouting that bandits had broken in. He cursed. What was going on there? At that moment, Zofia entered the dungeon and commented on his surprised face. Like, what? They are still alive, huh? Krishna was surprised. Why did the stormy Zofia come here? The protagonist came in after her and said that it was very unreasonable. Gilendor is a guy who lives up to expectations in a bad way. The deputy commander could not believe her eyes when she saw the protagonist. He continued that he immediately came to the call, let this freak be ready, because it will be mortally expensive. His opponent called them a swear word. The protagonist replied that he should not pay attention, he is a bad healer. Zofia said that she is just a guide. Krishna, bleeding, did not understand what they were doing here. Gilendor shouted to his guards, is anyone there? Zofia smirked and said that her guys are rioting in the street, so he will not have help for some time. He exclaimed, so they are lizardmen. That's right, the very bandits that are rumored. But don't let them try to intimidate him, idiots. If they are slum bandits, they can just be shot. The protagonist took a step forward. Gilendor raised his pistol, pointed it at the protagonist, and ordered him to stand still. He would deal with them one by one. Krishna used her last strength to tell Xenos that he needed to be careful. A magic gun without a limiter was extremely deadly. The aristocrat shot him almost point blank and shouted that they, idiots, were on the territory of a noble aristocratic family. They should know their place. When the smoke from the shot cleared, the protagonist rubbed his shoulder and said, yes, it did hurt a little, but he was alive and well. Gilendor was amazed. What was this? How could this happen? After all, he shot almost point blank. He cursed and asked, how could they do this then? Pointing 2 pistols at the protagonist, he fired a pair of shots. Black smoke from the gunpowder rose. He laughed and said that he would teach the beggars a lesson. Krishna said the protagonist's name with regret. But then the incredible happened. The protagonist was standing in front of the aristocrat, as if nothing had happened. Xenos snatched both pistols from his hands, threw his pistol on the floor, and pointed the magic weapon straight at his opponent's forehead. He asked him why he was firing from his pistol like a madman? He should have a conscience. Gilendor sat down on the floor and spoke pitifully about his pistol. Then he asked the protagonist what this freak was doing. The protagonist, aiming at him, replied that when shooting at people, you have to be prepared to get a bullet in the forehead yourself. You shouldn't forget about it. The aristocrat fell at his feet and imploringly asked him to stop. He understood everything. They were honest bandits. He would pay them. The protagonist objected. He was not a bandit. Glendor asked with a trembling voice, what did he want then? Xenos said that he simply did not like how he, without a shred of doubt, decided to incinerate him with a magic pistol. The aristocrat begged. He understood everything. Let him be forgiven. He was asking for mercy. The protagonist firmly refused him. The enemy exclaimed, but why? The protagonist pointed at Krishna and told him to apologize to the girl. Galendor crawled to her and began to justify himself. He was wrong. His blood rushed to his head a little. He just shot. Let her forgive him. He asked her, well, is such an apology enough? The protagonist answered instead of the girl that such an apology was rejected. He howled, but why? Xenos said, does he think that he really apologized? In general, to be honest, he is not Krishna's friend. He is just helping her. Galendor asked him, so what's the matter then? The protagonist answered that there was someone else he should apologize to first. The enemy asked, who was it? MC was surprised. Did he really not understand? Galendor laughed nervously. Ah, that's it. He wanted to intimidate him and shake out a bigger ransom. Xenos said that since he did not understand, he would have to punish him. The aristocrat wanted to stop him, but he continued that he would better feel what it was like. He pointed the gun at him again and noted that he would be a candidate for a patient. Galendor screamed in fear. What was he doing? The protagonist shot him. The bullet threw the freak against the wall with a powerful whirlwind, and he fell. Krishna was amazed. Did he really kill him? Xenos answered that he turned on the limiter, so this guy is alive. It is not his job to pass judgment on this scumbag. The girl asked him to pass this case to the headquarters of the Imperial Guard, and added that, however, it was too late. He said it was her job. After examining her, the protagonist noted that the girl's left arm and side were affected, and most likely her internal organs. She asked if he thought it was all over for her. The protagonist said encouragingly that this somehow did not fit with the image of the Iron Lady. Krishna began to cry. Xenos put his hand on her wounds and said that she would cry later when he presented her with a bill. The girl did not understand what he meant. Meanwhile, he was examining the internal injuries. The protagonist withdrew into himself, scanning her organs. He said, rupture of blood vessels and soft tissues, bone fractures, tissue death. Bleeding can be stopped and the damage can be healed. The girl wanted to ask him about something, but MC asked her to be silent for a bit. She was distracting him. She still said that he was a real savior. Xenos muttered that it was nothing. He was an ordinary dark healer from the slums. After some time, Krishna stood up, looked at herself and could not believe her eyes. She did not have a single wound, not even bruises. She said, so he is a user of this amazing healing magic. He answered embarrassedly that, yes, something like that. The girl was amazed. To possess not only protective but also healing magic at the same time is unthinkable. He was embarrassed again, saying, there's nothing wrong with that. Zofia told her that everything was fine. She saw it all herself. Krishna confirmed her words, bowed before him, apologized, and added that she was wrong. She couldn't be considered an ideal heroine. The protagonist felt sorry for her, and he replied that it was impossible to be an ideal hero without fear and reproach. If you fight for something, you can't avoid bruises and wounds. That's what they are for, healers. Krishna addressed him by name. MC continued that he didn't like to speak for others, but no matter how badly she was wounded in the fight, there was no doubt that for them she was a real heroine, and he pointed to the children she was trying to save. At first, she didn't understand for whom. Then one of the boys asked, is everything okay with the aunt? The second child asked, did the good aunt win? And the girl understood what the protagonist meant. He put his hand on her shoulder and said that she was the first one to act. In a situation where the truth was hidden from outsiders, she stood up to the aristocrats. Knowing that there were children who needed help, she decided to save them. Who was the real hero then, if not her? He shook her morally. She came to her senses, grabbed the bars and reassured the children that everything would be fine. Just a little more, now she would get them out. Probably, her mother was the same. She always thought that her mother was a pathetic victim, but her eyes always sparkled like that when she distributed food to children in the slums. The protagonist said that now she had become a hero for children. He had no doubt about it. Krishna said that she always tried to be perfect, but her mother was clumsy, absent-minded, hot-tempered, forgetful, just a flawed person. With all this, without any doubt, she was a real heroine for her. At this time, Zofia told him that they had to leave. The protagonist agreed with her, turned to Krishna and said, okay, it's up to her now, let her come and pay for the treatment later. The girl called out to them and asked why they had come to her aid. The allies fell silent, then Xenos answered her. She said that she would pay for the night's lodging. If she died, who would pay him the debt for her? And let her pay exactly as much as she owed. He would include this amount in her bill for treatment. Zofia and he were about to leave, but suddenly they heard laughter, at first tentatively, then more confidently. They turned around in surprise. Krishna was laughing like a child. He asked her what was so funny. The day her mother died, she stopped laughing forever. She was so angry and sad that she could not even smile. How can you smile when at least one criminal is walking free? So now, she laughed for the first time. The protagonist admitted that she laughed somehow strangely. He would even say that it was scary. The girl objected. What can she do? She hadn't laughed for so long. Then she sadly added that the inability to laugh was her only flaw. She was silent for a while, then said that no, it was not so. It was one of her many flaws. At this time, Aston's squad reached their destination. Gale said that, finally, they were here, in the middle of nowhere. Aston grumbled, let him not test his patience. Gale continued, saying, if only they had some grape wine now. Yuma answered him with a chuckle. They would quickly sort this out and make up for everything in the city. Andres agreed with them on this. They went into the cave. Gale asked his friends if they saw how stunned that girl from the tavern was when she found out that they were from the Golden Phoenix. Yuma called out to Andres, where is he going ahead of them? His friend answered him, whoever is ahead gets the reward. Aston urged them not to bicker like market women. Let them forget about commoners. Now noble ladies will pine for them. They will first become mercenaries of the highest rank, and when they retire, they will become aristocrats. Suddenly he stopped and said, let them just look, in front of them are B-plus class firefoxes. Aston addressed them as if to say, they are ready, scary creatures. Well, the fur of cubs is softer and more expensive, so let his friends be more careful. They will please Lord Fennel. He stroked his weapon and noticed that his blade was already starting to become covered with rust. Aston told Gale to use a protective spell. The ally replied that he would do everything and activated his skill. He took out a sheet of paper with a spell, applied protection, and the squad attacked the monsters. One firefox jumped on Aston from above. He was outraged by its speed. At that moment he was burned. He screamed that he was hot. When Aston dealt with the enemy who attacked him, he examined himself. His clothes under the armor were half burned, and his hand was burned. At that moment, his attention was drawn to the scream of Yuma. He was lying on the ground, and a fox was sitting on top of him and gnawing his shoulder. The guy howled in pain. Aston could not understand what was happening here. The foxes attacked one after another, and they could not do anything about it. Aston shouted to Andres to quickly use an attack spell. The ally replied that he was already casting. The commander urged him not to dig around, but to do everything quickly. They needed to hold out a little longer. All wounded, he was outraged by the work of Gale. This is what he calls defensive magic? The guy didn't understand what was happening. He did everything right. Yuma was groaning in pain. He had lost a lot of blood, and the foxes kept attacking and attacking tirelessly. The allies had no strength left. They were desperate and indignant every now and then. What was going on? Aston reprimanded Andres. Where was his attack magic? The ally replied, in order not to damage their skins. The magic needed to be debugged more precisely. He needed more time. Aston cursed, but there was nothing to be done. They had to retreat for a while. He was furious with his allies. Couldn't they deal with these damned foxes? They were only B-plus class. Andres pointed his finger at him and was indignant that he hadn't fought normally at all. What kind of ballet was that? Gale, supporting the wounded Yuma, noted that these foxes had battered them pretty good. Maybe that idiot Xenos was right. After all, he told them that when his companions were wounded, he used an instant healing spell. In addition, he used defensive magic, so they were difficult to wound, and with strengthening spells, he increased their strength in battle. Aston said that this did not happen. The guy answered him, of course, it did not happen. The commander thought about it and said that it was possible to hire a healer. Under the threat of completing a task from the 7 great houses, he had no right to make a mistake. He would return to the nearest city and contact the guild. Gale was very thirsty, but he told him that he could not drink. 10 days later, the allies were returning back. Aston was lamenting. He had wasted so much time. When they came to the nearest city, they hired Woman, a healer, and now he turned to her with a request that she be useful. The girl answered that they should not hope for this. She is usually a healer in King's Landing. She only has the qualifications of an adventurer. She wondered why the Golden Phoenix, who is known to be able to defeat even Class A magical beasts, was seeking the support of a mid-level healer like her. Aston told her that there were a lot of things going on here too. Guile asked the girl if Yuma would be okay. She replied that he survived, but was no longer fit for adventure. Andres asked the commander what he was going to do. Aston sullenly replied that they would just bring the pelt home. Lord Fennel of the 7 Noble Lords told him that he wanted to give his daughter a fox fur scarf for her birthday. It was a direct order from him, and a great opportunity to sell the name of the Golden Phoenix. He had to receive the pelt today and head home. After all, Yuma was not worthy of the glorious Golden Phoenix. He turned to Andres and told him not to drag out his magic this time. The guy replied that he knew it himself, so he was already prepared. Gale, he said that he was not drinking this time. The ally answered that he understood everything. Everything would be fine. They came to the place where they met the foxes. They were already waiting for their visitors and prepared to attack. The friends accepted their attack, and a fierce battle ensued. Fighting off the fox's attack, Aston told Gale to take cover. The guy replied that he should trust him, and activated his spell. The commander looked at the opponents and thought that now they could only slowly reduce their numbers. At that moment, one of their opponents fired a fiery blow at Andres. He was thrown to the side. A huge burn gaped on his body. Aston shouted at him, "What the hell is he doing? Let him get up quickly." The ally could not move. He groaned from the burning pain. The commander called him an idiot and continued his attack. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't hurt the enemy. Aston thought angrily, why couldn't he hit anything? At that moment, Woman called out to them and asked, "Are they still continuing?" Andres is in danger if he doesn't get proper treatment. The commander himself already realized that it would be difficult to finish off this filthy fox alone when his body was so weak. They need Andres's destructive magic. Even if they persist here, they will only wear themselves out until they can't use their wounded idiot ally. He cursed. They had to retreat again. Having retreated to a safe distance, Aston pounced on Gale, asking him what the hell was going on. He was not going to listen to his excuses that he was out of shape this time. Gale told him that he himself did not understand what was happening. Woman let it slip that the defensive magic was turned on. Without it, Andres would have died instantly. She tried to heal him, but so far it was weak. Aston told the wounded man that he would not allow him to do this if he was seriously injured, and ordered the girl to heal him quickly. She objected. Do not say that it is easy. They must make a formula and cast a spell depending on the state of the wound. They gave him first aid, so they must urgently send him to a hospital with recovery magic. Aston was indignant. What is she saying? They don't have time for this. Let her heal him right here and now. Woman was astonished. What are they talking about? Even a senior healer can't completely heal him right here. Only a few special healers and saints can do that. Aston was astonished. What did she say? He remembered the protagonist and realized that if he thought about it, his party hadn't remained unscathed since they got rid of that guy. If necessary, it supports with defense and strength magic, and if injured, it heals instantly, was how he described it. But who can use special class healing magic without a healer's license? He reminded the girl she said that she was a healer. Was she kidding? The only reason he didn't accept him was because he thought he was useless. The girl said, "It's hard to imagine. Is there such a person?" He replied in the negative. His mind was spinning. What is he saying? The poor man couldn't do that. But one thing is for sure, time is running out on the quest. He cursed in anger. After a while, he received a letter from Lord Fennel, in which the Lord lamented that he had been a fool to expect anything from him. Let him never show his face to him again. Aston broke out in a sweat. He decided to go back and talk to the Lord. They were met by the Lord's confidant. Aston asked his permission to talk to Lord Fennel. The man replied that my lady's birthday had already passed. Why did they come? He adjusted his monocle and continued that the Lord's anger was caused not only by their failure. He thought it was impossible. He could have called earlier and spared himself the awkwardness of coming to the lady's birthday empty-handed. Aston grabbed him by the shoulders and began to justify himself. Everything was wrong. They were doing well. They were close to defeating the fiery fox. The man asked what he was talking about. Aston came up with an excuse on the spot and replied that there was a traitor in their group, and they were one step away from finishing him off when that freak Xenos suddenly left them. The man thought about it. Xenos? That was strange. He had never heard of a Golden Phoenix member with that name. Aston realized that he had made a mistake. They didn't write about it in official or written documents, so as not to leave behind the people from the slums who were in the group. He told the man that he was mistaken. It was an archer named Yuma who had betrayed them. Guile was indignant. What was his commander talking about? Aston angrily told him that it was true. He was useless. The man said that he was sorry to hear that. The group's problems should be solved by the group, turned around and started to leave them. Aston fell to his knees and begged, "Please, once again, let him give him another chance." The man grinned and spoke. He was told that 2 members of his group were seriously injured and were in the hospital. What chance did he want to give to a group that only had half of its members left? Aston quickly assured him that it was okay, because they would soon have a good replacement. So please, let the Lord grant him another chance. The man was silent for a moment, then replied that he would inform Lord Fennel of his request. Aston thanked him profusely. Guile asked his commander in amazement what he was going to do after such words. The leader told him not to worry. There was another slave in their group. Aston meant the protagonist. He was sure that he would gladly return. he would cry with joy if he returned him. Resolutely moving towards the exit, Aston said that the protagonist should thank him, he himself would come for him. At this time, the protagonist sneezed. Caring Lily asked him, "Is he okay?" Aston recalled his first meeting with Xenos after leaving the Lord. They were going on another raid as a group. Raids, whether a person wants them or not, take a lot of time and effort. The same goes for completing guild assignments. Moving loaded with equipment, food, and things takes time and effort. That's why they came up with the idea of including the poor in the squad. These dregs of society could be used as much as they wanted. Then they were walking down the street with Andres and saw a boy sitting on the ground near the wall of a building among some bags. Aston then thought that he seemed to have nowhere to go, so he approached him and asked what he was doing. The boy answered that he was doing nothing. The commander then suggested that if he was not busy, maybe he would go on a raid with them. Xenos said that he had heard that the poor could not be with aristocrats. Aston replied that usually not, but he did not care about these social classes if the person was motivated and had abilities. He asked him if he could do anything. The protagonist replied that he could heal a little with magic. The commander said that was just what he needed. They didn't have a healer, so let him join his squad. Guile called out to Aston and asked why he was so thoughtful. He replied that his ally shouldn't pay attention. Everything was fine. He looked around and noted that he hadn't thought about returning to the snake pit. Guile shared his fear that the Xenos had been dead for a long time. Aston replied that it wasn't a fact. Maybe he was alive. He gave him a gold coin as a parting gift, so he should have held out longer. His ally grumbled that these slums were very big. How would they look for the protagonist? The commander replied that he had an idea. 3 main groups of non-humans were fighting for territory in the slums. It seemed to be lizardmen, werewolves, and orcs. They will ask them to find Xenos. They were the ones collecting information from all the slums. Finally, they arrived at the place and saw one beastman. They approached him and asked if he would take them to his leader. They had a job offer. The beastman asked who they were. Aston introduced himself as the commander of a gold-level squad and handed him his business card, saying that he could be sure of it. The beastman looked at the card and told them to follow him. He led them to Zofia and reported to the leader that this man, the commander, wanted to offer them a job. Zofia lazily said, "A job?" She was busy, going to meet the doc. Aston introduced himself to her, said that he was the commander of a gold-level adventurer squad, Golden Phoenix. The girl noted how long the name was, let them get down to business. Aston asked her to find them a man named Xenos. He had disappeared into the slums about 2 months ago. Zofia suddenly laughed loudly. The commander wondered why the hell she was laughing like that. Having calmed down, she exclaimed, "How dare he? They are that squad of idiots who, according to rumors, expelled the doc. Indeed, their faces are like idiots." She irritably added that they should get lost. She did not have time to look for someone they were not worthy of. Aston exclaimed, "She knows Xenos? So what the hell is she showing off for?" Zofia rudely interrupted him, saying, "Enough." She did not care about idiots. Aston got angry, grabbed his sword and exclaimed, "Who did she take him for?" She narrowed her eyes in anger and muttered through her teeth, "Does he even know who he is talking to?" He angrily turned to the exit and muttered that he had only wasted his time. Zofia called after them, "If they touch the protagonist, they will not get away with it." When the allies left her home, Gale exclaimed, "What the hell is going on?" Aston irritably replied that he himself did not know, but let his friend not worry. There are 2 more groups in reserve. They came to Ling and voiced their request to her. She laughed. Just imagine, a squad of idiots who drove out Mr. Xenos came to her. She thinks that it is better for them to die and be reborn as dung flies. Aston exclaimed, "Does she also know the protagonist?" She did not think that MC has a business with dung flies, so it is in their interests to leave here immediately. The commander shouted, "How dare she talk like that?" The girl was immediately surrounded by her loyal werewolves, and she asked Aston, "Is he asking for trouble?" And again, with nothing, they left the home of the leader of the werewolves. Linga told them after that if they behaved inappropriately with Mr. Xenos, the werewolves would not forgive them. Let them get it into their stupid heads. Aston was furious. What was going on here? Gale shrugged. He didn't understand anything either. The commander said that he had to meet the main character anyway. They couldn't do without him. There was one more race left, the orcs, and he decided to go to them. In this place, they were met as inhospitably as in the previous ones. Levi asked them, so they were the trash that Xenos had driven out? What did they want from him now? The allies had already realized that there was no point in voicing their request, so they immediately turned around to leave. Levi told them after them that if they bothered the protagonist, the orc clan would not remain silent. Completely confused, Guile turned to his commander, but he waved him off and asked him to shut up. Aston thought, judging by the reaction of the 3 groups, they simply adore MC. However, this simply could not be, which means it was someone else. He voiced his thought to his ally and added, "It just so happened that there was someone influential with the same name." Guile expressed doubt, but what about the talk about exclusion from the squad? Aston waved it off. It was just a coincidence. Such cases are not uncommon. But there was also a last option. This someone influential is Xenos, but he was tormented by serious doubts that someone he always looked down on was admired by the bigwigs of the criminal world. He would never believe it. He turned to his ally and said that they, in any case, will find him. At this time, the protagonist was walking through the slums. He called Lily to follow him. The girl complained that she could not remember the way. He answered her that the slums were full of confusing streets. At that moment, Guile saw him and called out to his commander. When Aston turned to him, Guile pointed at the protagonist, who, unsuspecting, continued walking down the street. The commander happily thought that he had finally found him, and called out the protagonist by name. MC, seeing them, was amazed. Could it really be Aston and Guile? The commander approached him and said, "Wow, he is still alive." The protagonist looked him over from head to toe, said that he had things to do, and said goodbye. Aston shouted at him to stay put. He had been looking for him for a very long time in order to please him. Let him return to the Golden Phoenix. The protagonist and Lily turned around. He asked in bewilderment, why should he return? He wasn't going to do that. Aston smugly replied, "Sure, it's not every day you get a chance like this." But when he realized what the protagonist had said, he roared. What did he say? Did he misheard? He wasn't going? The protagonist noted that he had heard everything correctly. Stunned, Aston asked, "But why?" Xenos answered him with a question. Why not? Unfair treatment, meager pay, no benefit. In such cases, they usually refuse. Aston was embarrassed. It was not so. He was inviting him. The protagonist noted that in his free time he might consider accompanying them on a raid once, but only if they paid him well. The commander was surprised. What did he say? The protagonist answered him that he no longer worked for free. His rate was 1 million Van for 1 healing, and 3 times more for using defensive magic and enhancing abilities. And bargaining was not up for discussion. Aston got angry and exclaimed, "Who does he think he is? In any case, he has nowhere to go even here." At that moment, an orc approached the protagonist and greeted him. The protagonist recognized him as a patient and asked how his legs were. The orc replied that thanks to his treatment, everything was fine. The wound healed in an instant, and all this was only thanks to him. The protagonist gave him a recommendation not to overexert himself. The orc assured him of this. He added that they had the choicest meat, and they would be waiting for him next time. The protagonist thanked him for the invitation, and the astonished Gale said to the equally astonished Aston, "It turns out that this Xenos is the one." Meanwhile, various orcs, lizardmen, and werewolves approached the protagonist. He asked them about their health. They all endlessly thanked him for the treatment and help. Aston finally realized that it was thanks to MC that the Golden Phoenix remained unharmed. Guile said angrily that it was he who suggested kicking him out of the group. What was he going to do now? The commander told him to shut up and reminded him that didn't they all agree with him? Lily, who was watching them, told the protagonist that these guys were very noisy. Aston yelled at her. What kind of uncle was he to her? The protagonist took her hand and told her that it was time for them to leave. The commander indignantly yelled at him. Like, is he just going to leave like that? Does he really not want to come back to them? The protagonist turned to him and replied that he had already told him he wouldn't come back. He was fine here. Aston began to persuade him more gently that it was he who asked him, it was he who picked him up, and it was he who sheltered him. MC asked him for forgiveness and added that it was too late for him to ask him. Furious commander couldn't believe his eyes that Xenos was just leaving him. He narrowed his eyes and ominously whispered that he shouldn't ignore him. He grabbed the hilt of his sword, intending to draw it, and said, was he really so flattered by the adoration of this scum? And one day it would be he, Aston, who would become an aristocrat, and it would be he who would kill him. Having pulled out his weapon, the commander intended to strike the protagonist from behind. But at that moment, someone called out to him and ordered him to stand still. He was simply bent by a powerful shockwave, and Krishna, aiming her magic pistol at him, said that he was too impudent. Since he had the audacity to attack in front of her, the Imperial Guard Division would not let him get away with this. Aston was amazed. The Imperial Guard Division? The protagonist was also surprised. He called out her name and asked what she was doing here. She replied that she was going to visit him, accidentally scratched her finger and needed his help. The protagonist, with all his spontaneity, advised her to lick it and everything would go away. She was indignant, but she was trying for him. She was ready to pay for all the treatment. The protagonist sighed and said, okay, so be it, he would help her. Aston thought, Krishna, it sounds familiar. It seems like she solved several cases, and according to rumors, became the youngest deputy commander of the Imperial Guard Division. How could it happen that she was so friendly with Xenos? He cursed mentally. Who is he, this MC? What, in general, does all this mean? Krishna turned to Aston and said that she was detaining him for attempted assault and would take him to the police station. The commander leaned forward and asked her to shut up. He started making excuses that everything was wrong. He didn't want to attack. The protagonist forced him to, turned around and ran away from danger, abandoning his ally. The amazed Gale exclaimed, "What's wrong? What was he going to do?" Krishna shouted at him. How far was he going? Aston himself didn't understand how she stopped him. Protagonist not dare to ignore him. Zofia licked her finger and said that the jam was delicious. Linga smiled and said that she had made the jam from apples. Levi admitted that she had helped too. Linga replied that Levi had only helped carry the pot, but she had done everything else alone. Levi was offended and said that she had actually taken out the apples. And she asked jokingly who had mixed up the sugar and salt at the very beginning. Linga was upset because Levi had promised not to tell anyone. Zofia said that they had come to this. The orc chieftain and the terrifying werewolf were making jam together. What was going on? Levi and Linga exchanged glances and said that Zofia had proven herself in the matter with the aristocrat, and they had been left idle, so they had occupied themselves. Zofia said that she understood what was going on. She asked about their decision to team up to present themselves in a better light. She laughed loudly and asked if they had really decided to bypass her with some jam. In the fight for the dock, she was still one step ahead. Linga got angry, and Levi admitted that, sadly, she had nothing to say. Xenos stood aside and said that he had heard the conversation from the very beginning. He asked to take it into account, and anyway, they had lunch at his house, as a matter of course. He asked Lily to make him tea, if she had any cups left. He took a piece of bread, spread some jam on it, and bit into it, chewed and said that it was delicious. Zofia screamed at him not to say that, even if it was true. After all, Linga and Levi would get arrogant. Linga was happy and said that she was happy. Levi added that they had won. She was going to cry. Camilla was flying in the air and giggling that it had turned out to be a draw in the fight for MC's heart. Zofia said that a brigade had come to her the other day and kicked him out of the squad. Xenos was surprised. Zofia continued that it was stupid of them to kick the doc out of the squad. Linga said that the same brigade had come to her too. They were still fools. Levi supported the conversation by saying that they had dared to show up at her place too. Zofia said that she had a bad feeling about Aston. She had asked one of her guys to follow him, but they had not been able to determine his location. Linga confirmed her words and added that even her werewolf sense of smell had failed. Levi added that no one had been caught in the orc's net either. Lily asked if they had not returned to their quarter. Zofia said that she wished that were the case. Linga confirmed that there would be problems if Aston had gone deeper. All because in the slums there is a bottom that even the most hardened scoundrels cannot get to. Xenos asked again, the bottom of the slums? Camilla explained that they were talking about an underground guild. Zofia clarified that it was also called an illegal guild. If you need to do a job that you can't do yourself, you usually turn to them. Regular guilds work according to established rules approved by the state about the content of orders and the payment system. To become part of this system, you need to pass a certified test. However, in the underground guild, there are no such rules. For money, they take on any job: drug trafficking, murder, organizing revenge. There are rumors that the underground guild was involved in a case of trafficking in aristocrats' children. Lily got scared and asked, what if this noisy guy asks for something bad from this underground guild? Xenos clarified that she called Aston a noisy uncle. He continued drinking tea and said from what he had heard about the underground guild, the order would cost a pretty penny. Camilla said that if the team had specifically gone to the slums to find Xenos there, then the situation was probably dire. Zofia remembered a rumor that there was someone in the underground guild who had recently been accepting orders on certain conditions, instead of money. This person called himself a guide. Somewhere in the underground guild, a man hiding his face with a hood from a cape greeted and asked how the client found this place. He heard that the client was sent here due to the lack of ability to pay. He said that such clients are common. He asked him not to worry and reassured him that he was taking on the job not only for the money. He allowed him to call him the guide. He clarified what the client's order was. After the client's story, he realized that he needed to organize revenge. The client can't stand the victim and his minions. Asked about the reason for the order? Said that the rest of the underground guild probably don't care about the reason, as long as they get paid, but it's very important to him. It turned out that the reason is rather perverted and selfish. It's not revenge, but rather just resentment. But he won't refuse the client. This is his favorite reason, and he will do the favor. The man is just doing some research. He thinks it's high time to apply this sample. Ask not to worry. The order will be completed properly. The man smiled and asked the customer to introduce himself. The customer turned out to be Aston, at Xenos' house. MC was sitting thoughtfully. Lily asked him about him not being able to sleep. The protagonist apologized and said he would go to bed soon. Lily asked if MC would like some black tea, although would he be able to sleep after tea? Zenos said that everything was fine and asked for tea. They drank a cup of tea. Lily asked if the tea was tasty. MC replied that it was, as always, very tasty and thanked her. Lily said that when she couldn't sleep, MC usually stroked her head. The protagonist said that he would sleep well now. Lily was fast asleep in her bed, and Zenos was wandering around the house. Camilla was sitting in the room drinking tea. She asked MC why he wasn't sleeping. He asked if she was too. He explained that Lily had prepared 3 cups of tea. He should drink the tea because Lily was a very caring girl. Camilla asked what MC thought about the former squad, and that was why she wasn't sleeping. Zenos asked if she was worried about him. Camilla replied that it wasn't that. She wanted to chat a little since she had nothing to do at night. Zenos said that he wasn't preoccupied with thoughts about the former squad. After he opened the infirmary, he had been very busy and hadn't thought about Aston. Now he remembered how Aston treated him, and now he regrets that he never hit him like that. Camilla said that, to be honest, human life is short and fleeting, and it is better to return the favor while it is not too late. Zenos thought and looked at his bandaged hand. He said that she was probably right. The recent meeting with Aston brought back memories of the past, those days before he joined the squad when he lived in the slums. Camilla clarified that Zenos mastered his healer magic there. How did he do it? MC began to remember. Initially, he lived in a local shelter. Only now did he realize how terrible the shelter was. Every day in the slums was filled with many deaths. In the shelter, children were instructed to rob corpses, take everything that could be sold for money. MC was against it, so he buried the corpses without taking anything, for which he was often beaten. He felt sorry for the dead. They were already dead, and they were robbed. So he buried the corpses so that no one could steal their things. Looking at the spread out bodies, it was as if he was looking at himself in the future. But despite all the efforts of MC, the corpses were often dug up. One day he naively thought, what if he resurrected someone? Reyes was indignant. This is a forbidden spell. The protagonist explained that he did not know this then, and every day he desperately tried to resurrect. He held his hands over the body and imagined how the body was restored, but naturally nothing happened. So he painstakingly studied the structure of the body, how the skin is structured, how the muscles are attached, how the organs are located, how the blood vessels and nerves pass. Then MC had no idea about anatomy, and did not understand what and why is needed, how everything functions. But he did not stop thinking, imagining, and observing, methodically, step by step, until he could clearly reproduce the structure of the body in his head. Camilla listened attentively to the story. In the slums, all sorts of species live and die. From this, Zenos learned the structure of bodies from his own experience. Are there many healers like him in the world? At first, his studies were of little use, but he continued day after day, year after year, until his body began to embrace the white light, and he felt a response. Then he thought that what he had planned would definitely work. But that day, when he tried to resurrect, something hit him on the head. He turned around and saw a man. The man grabbed him by the clothes and said that you can never use this power on the dead. This power should be spent on the living. Camilla asked if this was the healer MC met in the slums. Zenos agreed and added that he saw him use magic only once. He never found out the real name of this man. For him, who knew nothing but the world of the slums, he opened up a whole new world. This man was cool, even if he looked suspicious. The mentor had many favorite phrases, but MC heard one more than others. A third-rate healer only heals wounds, a second-rate heals people, and a first-rate heals the world. Sometimes Zenos remembers the mentor and asks himself, has he even become third-rate? The protagonist asked Camille if he had probably tired her with his stories and apologized. She replied that it had been a great way to while away the time. This, of course, was different from resurrection magic. But in her time, there was magic that allowed one to create a golem, a semblance of a living being. It was 300 years ago when the demon lord was still alive. About 400 years ago, demons invaded human territory. This is mentioned in the legend of the great battle between humans and demons. 100 years had passed since the demon lord was destroyed, since the beginning of the war. Now this is a lost magic of darkness. Then golems were created using a magic stone made of sulfur, carbon, and other components. Golems knew neither fear nor pain. They meekly followed orders and were very unpleasant opponents. Zenos asked what Camille was doing 300 years ago. She replied that it was so long ago that she no longer remembered and continued drinking tea. MC heard a noise. It seemed to be somewhere in the slums. Camilla flew up above the house and said that she could not believe her eyes. In the distance stood the golem they had just talked about. It was raging in the slums. The frightened inhabitants of the slums ran along the streets. They helped each other get out from under the rubble. Zenos looked at all this in horror. He recognized the troublemaker. It was the golem. Camilla flew up to MC from behind and said that this was the greatest secret, however. The protagonist was frightened by the unexpectedness. He was surprised that Camilla came to see what was happening. She said that she could not resist her curiosity. How did this relic end up at this time? MC asked what Lily was doing. Camilla answered that she was sleeping. It was for the best. If she saw this monster, she would think she had dreamed it. Zofia, Ling, and Levi called out to Xenos. He asked if they were all right. Zofia reported that they had somehow survived, but many of Ling's subordinates had been injured. Levi added that many of the orcs were seriously injured as well. They did not understand what kind of monster it was. It looked like a golem, an artificial life form from the depths of time. Xenos asked what was going on here. Levi replied that they themselves did not really know anything. According to her people, the golem came from the depths of the slums. Xenos thought about it. Could an underground guild be involved? He ordered Zofia, Ling, and Levi to join forces and gather all the injured in one place. He wondered who was controlling this giant semblance of a living creature. From the available data, this was not clear. However, one thing was for sure: the culprit would pay dearly. Somewhere nearby, the guide stood on a hill and watched what was happening through a telescope. He reasoned that the destructive force was in accordance with the calculations, but the golem was too slow. Unfortunately, it still needed a lot of work, although this would be enough to fulfill the current order. Aston ordered to deal with a certain Xenos, his former henchman from his squad. He picked him up in the slums, sheltered him, and he behaved arrogantly. Aston lost a lot, while Xenos gained a lot. This is unforgivable. It is extremely selfish to vent your resentment like this. The guide adores this. He loved to watch how people behave, what they feel when they find themselves in this or that situation. The order that Aston made fully corresponds to the interests of the guide. At night, neither the Imperial Guard Division nor the Imperial Hospital will rush to help. Perhaps they do not help the slums, so the residents of the slums have no one to count on for help from the outside. The guide heard that Xenos is a healer, but even he will get tired of helping the wounded, who only keep coming, when those who adore him will die one after another before his eyes. The feeling of helplessness and loss will torment Xenos. Will he fall to his knees in despair, or will he resist a little and move forward? The guide waited. What will Xenos do? He wanted MC to amuse him to glory. The injured residents helped each other. They carried the wounded to one place. One of the werewolves said that they have the sharpest sense of smell and suggested searching for the wounded by the smell of blood. One of the orcs said that their strength allows them to carry 5 people at once. He suggested that the orcs show what they are capable of. Xenos examined the wounded. He stood in the middle of the injured and used the power of healing of the highest order. It was only first aid. For a full recovery, he needs to understand the condition of each wounded individually. One of the lizards shouted to those who were healed to evacuate quickly. Fortunately for everyone, the golem moved very slowly. If they ran as fast as they could, many would be able to escape. The slum dwellers approached Xenos one by one to consolidate the treatment. Xenos was indignant. How much more? Camilla asked why Xenos was so nervous. MC replied, of course he would be. He suggested that she try to cure such a crowd of people. How many had accumulated overnight? He was also worried about Lily, who had stayed home. Damn that villain. Camilla clarified that although MC was complaining, she did not think that the idea was a failure. The guide watched through a telescope as Xenos treated the slum dwellers. He said, what a surprise. This is an extra-class specialist, or maybe, unfortunately, even cooler. The guide had certainly heard that MC had golden hands, but not to this extent. Keep up the good work, Xenos. The guide adores those who exceed his expectations. Xenos was seriously going to save all the wounded, and, of course, with an unperturbed look. Such a capable guy, even in the slums. The guide acknowledged the victory of the first round for the enemy, but he decided to argue with the second round. Xenos asked to report the situation. Zofia said that no more victims were found. The protagonist thanked for the information and good work. He said that he was very tired. Thanks to the MC skill, there were no fatalities among the inhabitants of the slums. Zofia and Xenos looked towards the golem and said that there was only one problem left. He asked Camilla what kind of incomprehensible creature it was. Camilla answered that it was an artificial creature animated by a magic stone. Xenos asked if the creature was abandoned here. Would it not return home on its own when it got tired of it? Camilla answered, of course not. Having received an order, the golem would not stop until it fulfilled it. Camilla did not understand one thing. High-grade magic stones with which the golem was created could only be obtained on the southern continent, where the demon lord lived. Well, their reserves were exhausted 300 years ago during the great battle of demon people. The system of dark magic has been lost for a long time, and training materials are not easy to get. Who could do such a thing? Xenos said, be that as it may, but the creations are right before his eyes. He decided it was time to end the break and move on. Camilla asked where to move. MC answered, "It is clear where, to kill the monster." Everyone supported MC and said that they were going with him. The protagonist agreed, but clarified that he could not pay a risk premium. The tribal leaders said that they did not need a premium. They cannot sit idly by while their houses are destroyed. These are their neighborhoods, and they will not allow them to be trampled. Let the monster know if he is so feared. Zenos thanked the girls and said that he understood everything. He added that he was mainly in rear support. He asked Camille what was the best way to defeat the golem. Camille said that the magic stone in its body had to be destroyed. If this was not done, the golem would constantly be restored. MC wondered how to destroy the magic stone. He thought that since he had been kicked out of the Golden Phoenix, he would be able to participate in a battle for the first time in a long time. It was a pity that the broken magic stone could not be sold later. Zeno suggested that they hit the golem once with all their might. There was no need to be afraid. He would support everyone. He asked them to rely on him. The leaders threw themselves into battle. MC gathered all his magic power and sent it after the girls. Increased agility, increased physical strength, increased attacks. They noticed that their bodies had become lighter. They realized that Zenos was helping them. Great, now they would bring the heat. Each of them was ready to use all their strength and skill against the monster. MC thought that he had not used ability enhancement magic for a long time. He decided that he could handle it, concentrated, and said to continue. While the girls were thinking about how to strike, the monster struck first. Linga received the blow. She flew to the side, but quickly came to her senses and was surprised that she was alive and without a scratch on her. It's all Mr. Zenos' magic. MC gradually remembered how best to fight. It is important to follow two rules. The first is to keep a certain distance so as not to weaken the effect of the magic. The second is that the activation form of healing, attack, and strengthening magic is different and cannot be used at the same time. Therefore, during the battle, it is necessary to instantly change one magic to another, more suitable one. He realized that he had more or less mastered it. No matter how much they destroyed his arms and legs, they were always restored from dirt and stones. But full restoration takes some time. He ordered everyone to attack both legs of the monster together. First, they will destroy the legs, and while he is restoring, MC will scan him. It is necessary to understand where the stone is, then they will be able to attack accurately. Sophia said that who would have thought that the day would come when they would fight side by side. Linga replied that she had Mr. Zenos to thank for that. Levi added that for the first time she trusted him to watch her back with a light heart. The guide watched the fight from afar. Zenos surprised him again. To achieve such a return from a hastily formed squad and to use specially designed magic so skillfully is not fair. Victory in the second round again for Zenos. The climax is very close. I wonder what MC will do this time? The monster was destroying everything in its path. Zofia shouted that there was a problem. A child was sitting among the ruins. The heroes rushed to help, but the monster also noticed the child. He leaned over to the frightened girl, but Zofia managed to run up first and take the girl in her arms. Camilla was surprised. She said that golems can only follow simple orders. How is it possible that the monster acted of its own free will? As soon as they started fighting him, he suddenly became furious, which was also strange. Zenos asked Camille if the high-grade magic stone that can be used to revive is no longer available. Camille replied that it was true. MC asked how one could forcibly place life into an inferior magic stone. Camille thought about it. MC said that he had completed scanning the monster and that the magic stone was located in his left sternum. The protagonist asked the monster if he was Aston. The guide watched what was happening, and it seemed that MC had guessed everything. The highest grade magic stone from the golem's core can no longer be obtained. Then, how can the golem be revived with an inferior stone? And the guide came up with an idea. What would happen if you took a living person and combined them with a magic stone to get a new core for the golem? However, it is usually difficult to control a person with a complex mixture of emotions. Therefore, a person with simple and understandable negative emotions is needed. Aston, with his desire for revenge, turned up at just the right time. Therefore, the guide was able to implant the magic stone and use it to create a golem. The guide wondered how Zenos would end the battle. The magic stone, having been absorbed, had almost merged with the customer's body. In order to destroy the stone, the host's body would have to be sacrificed. The guide expected an interesting performance. Zenos asked the girls not to be offended, but they might have to retreat. Linga said that she still had plenty of strength. Levi asked to give them the front line. Zenos apologized and said that only he could settle this matter. The girls thought about it, but left the battlefield. Camilla said that dawn was coming soon and it was time for her to return because she could not stand the sun. MC agreed and said that he would also return soon. The protagonist approached the monster and called him Aston. He said that only the two of them were left here. Their story together began the moment Aston called the protagonist with him. Saving a child? It's not like him. Aston himself was from the bottom. He was obsessed with money and social status, all because he couldn't buy medicine for his little sister and she died. Perhaps that's why the sight of a crying child reminded him of his dead sister. Human essence, albeit barely noticeable, is still present in Aston. The monster let out a scream and slapped his hands on the ground. MC thought that Aston was unbearable to see that a dog that was picked up and then abandoned looked happier than him. It had always been a mystery to Xenos how Aston determined at first glance that he had nowhere to go. But now he realized that Aston also had no place in this world. The golem slapped his hands on the ground even harder. The protagonist used the power to strengthen the legs. It was not his concern now. Then MC used a scalpel, an operation. He swung, and with one movement of the sword, both of the golem's legs swelled. The monster fell on its back. Xenos jumped on him and cut his chest with his sword. Aston was inside the monster. So they met again, although MC was not very eager for this meeting. This was the last time he looked at Aston's face. Xenos struck a powerful blow straight to Aston's heart. He said that it was time to end their adventures together. The guide was watching everything, and he did not understand how the protagonist decided to do this. He did not think that MC would be able to kill without hesitation. The guide was counting on a more exciting climax. Through the telescope, he saw MC trying to remove the stone from Aston's chest. Xenos said that it would hurt a little, but he had to endure it. The girls stood aside and did not understand why the doc was fiddling around for so long. He could kill the monster in one fell swoop. Levi said that most likely Xenos was doing something unimaginable. The guide guessed that Xenos was not just swinging his sword for no reason. Aston's arms were half muscleless, only bones were sticking out. While destroying the stone, MC was also restoring the body, cutting out areas that had merged with the magic stone and gradually restoring parts that were freed from the stone fragments. One careless move, and he would end Aston's life. And if he began to hesitate, the stone would corrode the restored areas. The guide could not believe his eyes. Aston was lying among a pile of stones. He wanted to know why Xenos had not killed him. MC noticed that Aston had come to his senses. He said that if Aston died, it would be easier for everyone. The world, the people around him, and himself personally. He asked Aston if he had completely lost his mind. He had destroyed himself, and alone he would not be able to pay for everything he had done. So they would collect from those who were behind it. If Aston was going to die, then first he must give up the location of the organizer. This is the first reason. The second reason is that Aston saved Lily and set up a hospital with the money Xenos gave him on a whim. Just one coin changed his whole life. The third and most important reason not to kill his comrade is that MC is a healer. Xenos asked if Aston understood him. Aston replied that he understood now. He realized how amazing MC really is. What he did exceeds human capabilities. Aston lost everything and didn't understand how to continue living. Xenos suggested that he decide for himself. Aston said that it was hard for him to imagine why Xenos helped the bad guys. He always supported everyone, and he suddenly felt so disgusted that he had used other people his whole life, and in the end he himself was used. What an irony. He knew that he wouldn't say all that empty, but he asked for permission to say at least this. Aston knelt down and asked to forgive him. Xenos said that was enough and asked him to raise his head. But Aston asked for forgiveness again and again. MC smiled and said that it was inconvenient to hit in such a position. Since Aston had come to his senses, there was no point in holding back any longer. Aston asked what he was talking about. Xenos used ability enhancement, increasing the force of the blow tenfold. MC had just saved some magic for such a case. Aston got scared and started asking to wait. MC said that the last reason he left him alive was that he knew that it wouldn't get any easier for him if he got even while Aston was unconscious. Because of Aston, the protagonist had to work hard. Aston thought that he would just kneel and be forgiven. Xenos hit with all his might. Aston flew high into the air, and when he fell, he lay there and looked at the sky. He heard a request to get up and saw the Iron Lady nearby. Krishna said that she came after receiving a message about a monster attack, and she had seen Aston for the second time. Last time, he had shamefully fled. She asked where Xenos was. She met him on the way here, and he told her everything. It's a miracle that no one died in such a disaster. Aston is forever indebted to MC, she said sternly. Aston Berengal is charged with attempted assault, escape, perjury, ordering revenge, indiscriminate violence, damage to property and other similar actions. He is under arrest, and she added that he is also guilty of indecent exposure. Aston said that he admits the charges. Krishna added that Xenos asked to convey that while Aston was lying unconscious, he confiscated his sword. For the masterpiece of the underground labyrinth, he can get a tidy sum. He will not return the sword, asked to reconcile. This was the first condition. Aston realized that he really lost everything. The second condition, which he asked to convey to MC, It was a coin, in exchange for not getting involved with MC anymore. That's all. A grown man and a crybaby. Real tears are yet to come. The Imperial Guard Division also joined in. It seems that times are changing. At the center of these changes, of course, is the healer from the back of the slums. The guide said what an interesting gathering had gathered. He will not forget Xenos. They will definitely play again. Xenos said that he was very tired, so tired that he will soon collapse from exhaustion. Levi said that MC could barely move his legs and offered to help. MC refused because she was tired too. The girls unanimously picked up MC and asked why he was so embarrassed. After all, he always takes care of them. Levi shouted for Linda not to cheat. MC gave in and said let it be as they decided. They led the protagonist to the house. He opened the door. Inside were Camilla and Lily. Camilla asked if the impudent fellow was all right. Lily screamed that Camille was so worried about Xenos that she was running around the house. Camille got embarrassed and said that Lily was a fool. Lily said that she was also worried about MC when she found out about what happened, but she knew that he would definitely come back. All the girls looked at MC with loving eyes. Xenos remembered how Aston had once approached him, sitting alone in the slums, taken him in by his squad, and later kicked him out. Thinking about it now, he realized that he didn't belong there from the very beginning. But thanks to this, he finally found so much more. Here he was home. This hospital among the ruins, on the outskirts of the Imperial capital, where strange people had gathered by chance, had become his home. The Imperial Hospital, the headquarters of the healers of the Haz's Empire. The Great Power, also known as the Empire of the Sun. Umin turned to Dr. Becca. He asked permission to ask a question. The doctor asked, "What is it?" Umin asked, "Is it possible that there is a healer without a license who uses extra-class magic?" The doctor thought about it and answered that he thought something happened. He was expecting Umin to call him for lunch. She answered that she had already had lunch. She added, "He never eats anyway because he's always busy." He clarified, "Still fi." She asked a very strange question. Umin explained that she was just curious whether it is possible or not. The doctor answered that he needs to think about it. The absence of a license can mean either that the person does not have a formal education, or that he failed the exam. Umin agreed. Thus, the doctor did not think that the person could reach a high level, but if suddenly such an individual exists, then it is very cool. Umin was surprised. Cool? The doctor continued, "That is phenomenal. After all, usually a license is obtained only after a long training in a school, after which they go to the highest level, starting with an apprentice, then the beginner level, the average, and only a few reach the highest level, after which only a handful of people with outstanding abilities and who have achieved much reach the level of the extra class. Isn't it admirable that a self-taught person could reach such a level?" Umin agreed. Becca said that if such a person existed, he would be happy to meet him, although it would be problematic. Umin asked that unlicensed activities should be suppressed. The doctor answered that it should be. He did not understand what the question was. She replied that she just wanted to make sure. She remembered the incident with the monster a week ago in the slums. Why did it take so long for headquarters to send healers to the slums? If there was a seriously injured person there, they could be late. One of the healers then replied that what can you do? It's just the slums. If it's an injured person, it makes no difference where he is from the city blocks or the slums. That's why they were sent as volunteers, and not in full form, as it should be. They did not know how true the rumors were about the appearance of the monster. They heard that the Imperial Guard Division detained the suspect. There were also rumors that the government was refraining from making statements to avoid unrest. The healers reached the slums and saw the scale of the destruction with their own eyes. Had a monster really been here? One of the healers said that he thought it was all a fairy tale. Where did the monster that had been here go? The first thing they decided to do was gather the victims in one place, asking the residents for assistance. Umin asked how there were no victims. She was told that no matter who the locals asked, they all said that no one needed a healer. She did not understand how this was possible during such a catastrophe. One of the healers dared to suggest that there really were no victims, and the residents staged everything to sow confusion at headquarters. Umin did not understand why this was necessary. The healer answered that who knows. Maybe the residents simply do not trust the healers, and they have wounded. In any case, there was nothing to do in the slums. Was the benefit of destroying your own home for the sake of staging? Besides, if someone close to you had been hurt, someone would have definitely asked for help. Umin wondered if there was something wrong here. There had been victims, and they had all been cured by someone else. What if there was a healer who could heal with extra-class magic, but who did not have a license? Who could you think of? Was there really a super-class healer hiding somewhere in this country that the headquarters did not know about? But that couldn't be right? She felt like she was talking nonsense. The doctor asked what Umin was thinking about. He looked at her intently and said that he was going on a house call. Would she like to join him? Umin was surprised. How again? But she had just been on a house call recently. Becca explained that house calls in areas with low medical care were also a worthy job in the Imperial Hospital. He clarified that she was worried about that incident. She answered, perhaps so. Becca understood her perfectly. Not that if she worried too much, her health would deteriorate, and that was bad. In fact, the doctor had something. He was holding an envelope in his hand. It was a request for a house call. He handed her the envelope. He said that this place was recommended for people who felt tired. People who were thirsty for health gathered at this address. Umin did not understand what place he was talking about. She opened the envelope and thought, if so, then perhaps this is where she can find this mysterious man. At the protagonist's home, Krishna is talking to MC. She said that the organizer of the golem incident was never found. All that was known was that he called himself a guide. MC thought about it. A guide. As far as he remembered, a guide from an underground guild. He takes on any tasks depending on the conditions. He will remember this information, and one day he will definitely return the favor. Krishna said that when she came to the secret hideout indicated by Aston, it turned out to be completely empty, without any traces. Zofia said that she also tried to find out about this guide. When she instructed her brother to investigate the underground guild, it turned out that the guide appeared there relatively recently. They say that he was an outcast and did not communicate with anyone from the guild. Linga said that she heard the same thing. Levi added that in the criminal world, there is an unspoken rule: do not get into someone's soul. Zenos said that he thinks there is a limit to what can be achieved with questions alone. Krishna said that the Imperial Guard is also looking for the guide as a dangerous criminal. The fact that he covered his tracks meant that he was lying low. Zofia said that sooner or later the guide would show up, and then she would figure him out. Linga suggested that the guide was probably up to something again. Levi expressed the opinion that a guide who could not be taken so easily might be in his secret hideout. Krishna called the girls bandits. She asked them to stop guessing and say something definite. Zofia was indignant. Hadn't Krishna just guessed? Krishna refused. She relied on the results of the investigation and interrogations. MC asked everyone to shut up. Maybe they would stop shouting at each other while standing in different corners. Krishna got angry and said that a representative of the Imperial Guard could not drink tea in the company of bandits. Zofia shouted that it was not her place to say such things. Why did she even come here? Krishna replied to give a report on the work done for those involved. She asked which of them was wasting Mr. Zenos' precious time then. Zofia said that these were empty words. Should she show her that these were empty words? Zenos started pushing all the girls out of the house. He said he would be. There was no point in arguing here. He was tired today, so he sent everyone home. Krishna decided to tell something about Aston at the end. It turned out that no one except her had mentioned MC by name during any of the interrogations. Aston said during the interrogation that he would not tell anything about MC's affairs. Perhaps he was taking care of him in his own way. Zenos' merits were only growing. MC said that he did not like to stand out. All these achievements, recognition. It was enough for him to simply receive payment for his work. Krishna said that she knew the protagonist would answer like that. As soon as the guards found the conductor, they would definitely contact MC. Lily came into the room carrying tea on a tray. She offered MC a treat. Zenos thanked her. She started talking about something that had occurred to her. Zenos interrupted her with a question. What was it? Did the protagonist have a hard time in the recent fight with the golem? Zenos replied that he hadn't been this tired for a long time. Lily continued the conversation to unwind a little together, so they could go to the onsen. She didn't even have time to finish speaking, as Zofia burst into the room. MC asked what she forgot. She said that she actually had a small proposal and was waiting for everyone to leave, since the doc had a hard time in the recent fight with the golem. MC confirmed that he was tired. Zofia asked if that was why they shouldn't go to the onsen to rest. There was a spacious font with warm water. It would surely relieve all of MC's fatigue. The protagonist thought about it, and it really doesn't hurt sometimes. Zofia was happy and said that MC promised her. After some time, Linga ran into the room. Zenos asked what she forgot. She answered that she had a small suggestion. She offered to go and relax with her in the onsen, soak with her in the warm water, and the fatigue will disappear in a flash. MC said that he would think about the suggestion. Linga screamed with joy that he promised. Levi ran right after and screamed that she had one suggestion. Zenos asked that he was talking about relaxing in the onsen. She was very surprised. How did the protagonist guess? Their thoughts completely coincided. He said that all the girls are berries of the same field. The door opened again, and Krishna came in saying that she had one suggestion. Zenos began to get angry that she was going there too. He saw her off and wondered if she had really gotten along with the others. He didn't understand why they were all talking about the onsen. He turned his head and saw Lily and reminded her that she wanted to tell him something. Lily puffed out her cheeks, turned away, and said that she had nothing left. MC didn't understand anything. Suddenly, Camilla appeared from above and said that she never got tired of watching the unsightly fights between women. MC said that he still couldn't understand how such a high-level undead could stoop to such a thing. Camilla said how long it had been since she had been to the onsen. Xenos was surprised. Did she really want to go there too? The onsen resort town of Flom is about half a day's ride from the royal capital by carriage. The town is famous for its healing baths and an abundance of springs with healing properties. The protagonist was sitting in one of these baths and enjoying himself. Oh my. He decided that it was good that he went. Suddenly he was called. Oh my. He turned his head and grinned. Zofia was standing behind him. He asked, "This is the men's half, isn't it?" Zofia was already climbing into the font and offered to at least rub his back. She said that it was a pleasure trip after all. The protagonist asked her to return to the women's half before the commotion started. She told him not to worry. She had put up a cleaning sign as soon as she came in. This place is entirely theirs. So it's just the two of them here, Zofia said. In fact, she wanted to go with him so much, but she was afraid that he would hate her for it. Lately, her brother and subordinates have been telling her that she has changed. Zofia flexed her hands and continued. She thought it was all because she met the protagonist. She believed that he not only heals wounds, but also changes the person himself. She was sure that the world would change with him. Xenos told her that she was exaggerating. Zofia said that he thought so, but the people around him would not leave him alone, at least to warm up together in the water like this. The protagonist turned to her and asked, "Is she getting closer and closer, huh?" Zofia was upset. He caught her. She wanted to catch him off guard and grab him. Then a cry was heard. "Hey, stop! It's not fair to cheat." Zofia replied, "Hush, Linga." Linga was indignant. This is the male half, and she asked what Zofia was up to. Zofia answered nothing. And what about herself? Linga cheerfully shouted that she was flying to swim. Xenos was indignant. "Are you kidding me?" But it was too late. Linga fell into the font. Zofia grabbed her hand and told her not to dare approach the dock so freely. Linga replied that she was just dizzy. The protagonist asked, "Is this even possible with her endurance?" Suddenly Levi jumped out of the water with a big splash, screaming, "Stop!" and asked, "Have they forgotten about her already?" She laughed and said that she hid in the water, waiting for Xenos. But she lost consciousness, and they brought her back to her senses with their commotion. Xenos asked if she overdid it. She was completely naked and said that she had a great style. Zofia was indignant. Nothing of the sort. Linga said that she had a great style. The protagonist told them that, actually, he wanted to sit in silence. The door opened and Krishna appeared. She was indignant and asked, "What are those bandits doing here?" "This is the male half." Zofia asked, "Did the steel lady also come to see Xenos?" She answered that they were mistaken. She just went to the wrong door and went in the wrong way. Which of the girls said that? She is definitely lying. The steel lady was indignant, no matter, and demanded not to dare approach Mr. Xenos in such a shameless state. Zofia was upset. One more obstacle. The protagonist was upset and closed his eyes. He did not want to look at them. He wanted silence. Linga screamed that she would not lose. Naked Levi asked him to burn her naked body with his gaze. He got tired of this and shouted at them, all at once marched to the women's half. Woman was sitting in the font in the women's half. She heard a noise. What was there? Woman deliberately chose an inn where there were few people. It would be a shame if strange individuals ended up here. A mysterious, extra-class healer hiding in the darkness. It seemed too far-fetched. The girls, on the protagonist's orders, returned to the women's half. The steel lady said, "All at home and does not know shame." Zofia replied that she was not the one to receive it. Linga said she thinks she was embarrassed. Levi was indignant. What a pity. She wanted to show off her naked body more. Bandits. Vuman looked at them and was surprised. Different types together. How unusual. Zofia noticed her look and asked, "Did she want something?" Vuman hurried with an answer. No, nothing." Levi walked and admired herself. "You can't take your eyes off her curves, right?" Linga answered, "And where did such confidence come from?" Lily also sat in the font with Vuman. She watched them go and said, sadly, "Good for them." Vuman did not expect that she was no longer alone. She looked at Lily and thought, "Wow, a pretty elf." Lily said longingly, if she had such curves, she would also burst into the men's half. Vuman was surprised and thought, "Burst in?" Lily and Vuman were sitting in the font opposite each other. Vuman wondered, was she talking about her friends? Camilla climbed into the font with them and tried to calm Lily down. There was nothing to worry about. You'll still have time to grow up. Big size is not always more attractive. Lily was surprised, wasn't it? Camilla answered her, "There are things that children cannot understand." Lily looked at her and asked Camilla, "Has your body become more transparent than usual?" Camilla looked at her hands and was surprised. "Oh, merciful Buddha, Am I really ascending to heaven? Disappearing. Woman turned to them. Excuse me. What happened? She saw transparent Camilla and was scared. Could it be a raise? Woman immediately used magic. Why are high-level undead here? Camilla was scared and said, flying away. Oh, perhaps she should disappear for a day. The bandits shouted to her that she was next. She answered, well, why not? Right, Xenos? Woman looked at the neighboring font where the bandits were sitting and was surprised that they were sitting as if nothing had happened. She thought that she had imagined the undead and decided that it seemed that she really had overworked herself. After some time, they were sitting in a huge company and eating. The girls thanked the protagonist. Let's drink. Doc, thanks for everything. Lily pounced on the food. Wow, how delicious. The steel lady was sitting at a separate table. Linga looked at her and said, it seems that she's been looking at them for a long time. Levi said that she felt waves of hatred. Xenos stood up and turned to Krishna. No need for such a face. He invited her to sit at the common table. The steel lady folded her arms and was indignant. No way. None of the Imperial Guards, standing guard over the order, will raise toasts to the leaders of the criminal world. The other girls said in unison, then they will all have fun themselves without her. Krishna was very upset. Lily devoured the soup and said that it was delicious. The protagonist tried it and confirmed that it was delicious. Linga said that it was a real food paradise. Her stomach could hold it all. Krishna was sitting at another table. Tears were welling up in her eyes. The alcohol was so bitter today. Maybe they were tears. The protagonist was surprised. Where is Camilla? Levi answered that Camilla said that she would drink alone in the room. Xenos was surprised. Woman was returning from dinner. She realized that it was so delicious that she could not resist and overate. Next time she would have to come with her friends from the hospital. She approached her door. She had some kind of bad feeling. She thought that it was probably because she was tired. Woman entered her apartment and decided to go straight to bed. There were slamming sounds from behind the living room door. Woman carefully took hold of the door handle and opened it. Camilla was sitting on the couch, drinking some drinks. Oh my! Camilla didn't expect such a meeting. Woman was shocked. Was this really a raise? Oops, she was in the wrong room. Woman couldn't believe her eyes. Wasn't this a dream? How could it be a dream? Let it be a dream. After dinner, the protagonist was dragging Lily on his back. He went into his room and said that they were back. When he entered, Camilla was sitting on the couch. He asked if there was screaming in the next room. What happened? She said she didn't know. Maybe he imagined it. Xenos put Lily to bed. He returned to Camilla and collapsed on the couch. Oh, he was tired. Camilla asked, was the banquet fun? He answered, it was until the middle. Until Krishna, who was drinking on the side, came drunk. She screamed with tears in her eyes that she still wanted to drink next to Mr. Xenos, and she started to riot. They had a competition to see who could drink more, where the winner would sit on the protagonist's lap. He asked Camilla, tell me, wasn't this banquet in his honor? She calmed him down. Yes, they had fun. She told him to enjoy the bustle of life now. Such peaceful days will not last forever. The protagonist asked Camilla how she got there. Only then did he notice it. She answered him, it was because she was a spirit, so she could possess things dear to her heart. During the day, she possessed a staff, and then Lily brought the staff with her. The protagonist turned his head. There was a staff near the door. Xenos asked, so this staff is hers? She confirmed his words. He asked her a question. He had asked her before, but still, what did she do in her past life? She answered, it was so long ago that it was already erased from memory. The protagonist was upset. She herself was sticking her nose into other people's business. And not a word about herself. Camilla laughed. It was not interesting to talk about herself. Other people's pitiful stories are the best snack for drinking. She offered, let me pour you some. Poor thing, suffering from the attention of women. The protagonist handed her a bowl and she poured him some. The next morning, Woman was having breakfast. She came here to relieve fatigue. It turns out the opposite. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion from the kitchen. She went to see what happened. Smoke was pouring out of the kitchen. She walked in and saw a man, a cook, lying on the floor, and a woman shaking him and screaming, darling, darling, wake up. Woman asked if she was okay. What happened? The woman explained that the man was in charge of cooking. When she entered the kitchen, she heard a loud bang. Woman saw that his hand was burned and blistered. The woman explained that perhaps the magic firestone had exploded. She had told him more than once to throw away this old stone, and she began to shake him again, darling, wake up. Then she realized, that's right, he needs to be shown to a healer. Woman said that she was the healer. The woman was surprised. A guest? She begged Woman to help the man. Woman said she would try to do something. She began to treat him. Magic circles appeared. The woman asked, Doctor, how is he? Woman answered, she would save his life. And she thought to herself, however, while the magic controls the pain and the spread of it would be good to transfer him to the Imperial Hospital in the city center. His fingers were badly burned, it would be problematic to completely restore them. Most likely, he will no longer be able to hold a kitchen knife. These thoughts flew through her mind, and she did not know how to tell the woman about this. Suddenly, a voice was heard. What happened here? The protagonist was standing in the doorway. Woman asked who he was. Xenos answered that he was a guest. He heard the explosion and came to find out what happened. He sat down next to the victim and asked, "A burn? Probably from magical fire?" Woman said that she wanted to transfer the victim to the Imperial Hospital in the city center. There they would help him recover in a high-level magic circle. The protagonist scratched his chin. Even such a thing exists? Sounds interesting. However, this is not necessary. Woman was surprised. How? Lily ran into the kitchen and asked, "Oh, Xenos, what happened?" The protagonist told him there was a small fire. Everything is fine. It was time to leave and it was time to go. Xenos said that he did not want to miss the opportunity to taste delicious dishes here again, so he returned the favor. He discreetly used a little magic, got up and headed for the exit. Woman shouted after him, "Wait!" "Where?" But it was too late. Xenos and Lily had already left talking about something. Suddenly, the victim got up and sat up. The woman gasped in surprise. Woman could not believe her eyes. What? How? How can this be? He was able to completely heal such a burn in an instant without the help of a magic circle. The only ones who could repeat something like this are extra-class healers endowed with holy power. She ran to catch up with the protagonist. She ran out into the street, but the carriage was already moving away. She decided that this time she definitely hadn't imagined it. There was one in this country after all, a mysterious top-class healer hiding in the darkness. After a while, Woman returned to work and reported to her boss what had happened. She said that she had seen Reyes hugging a bottle of sake and the bandits from different clans getting along. Becca said that he was glad that Woman had managed to unwind. However, a top-class healer instantly curing a severe burn, that was strange. Woman made excuses, but it was true, Dr. Becca. If he was working without a license, would they put him under control? Becca answered, most likely. There were about 10 healers of that level in the entire country. They were very valuable personnel. Naturally, the state wanted to keep them under control. Woman apologized. She had been careless, and that healer left. She remembered how the girl ran into the kitchen and asked, "Oh, Xenos, what happened?" Woman informed the boss. His name was Xenos, I think. She checked the list of all the registered healers. There was no such name. Dr. Becca asked, did she remember anything else? Woman said, there was very little time. Becca said, well, nothing can be done. Xenos does not seem like a bad person, so there will be no harm in leaving him alone. If the management finds out about this, then of course, they will tell them. Woman thought about it. Well, yes, that's right. About the appearance, the healer was wearing a black cloak. Doctor. Becca was surprised. A top-class healer in a black cloak? Woman asked, is something wrong, Dr. Becca? Becca stood up and said that he changed his mind, and offered to seriously engage in the search for this connoisseur. Woman was surprised, but agreed. She asked why Dr. Becca changed his mind. Becca answered that he really wanted to meet this healer. As with one of the top-class healers. At this time, the protagonist was at home. He was seeing another patient. Zonda reported that his stomach had been hurting since the morning. Xenos noted that he also seemed to have a fever. He asked Lily to put him to bed. Lily complied and helped Zonda lie down. Using magic, Xenos scanned the patient's health. The protagonist saw that his stomach was inflamed. Did he eat something wrong? Zonda replied that yesterday's meat tasted a little strange. MC said that it might be food poisoning then. He said that he would first relieve the pain and strengthen the body's resistance. It would be good to put in an IV to prevent dehydration, but there was no suitable water here. Once he felt better, the patient should slowly drink water. Zonda remembered all the recommendations. He said that he felt noticeably better and thanked the protagonist for this. Xenos asked him to save his strength for now. Zonda left with a brisk step. Lily praised Xenos for being able to treat diseases. Xenos replied, it depends on which ones. If you just cut out the affected area, it's easy. But if the disease has spread throughout the body, then he can only increase the body's resistance. The truth is that it's more effective together with medicine. But without a license, he can't buy medicine. Once there was an epidemic in the capital. Many people were dying in the slums. And a medicine was developed. Many lives were saved. Then he realized how amazing the medicine was. Lily grinned. Suddenly there was a scream. Doc. They went out to see who was there. Zofia, Linga and Levi came to them. The protagonist asked what was going on. Zofia said, there's no time to relax, Doc. A girl in a white cloak is prowling around the slums. Judging by her uniform, she's from the Imperial Hospital. Sniffs out everything about the protagonist. Xenos was surprised by this. The Imperial Sanitarium is hunting down nameless healers in the slums? Lily said that the doc may be nameless, but he is quite extraordinary. Zofia said that in her opinion, Mr. Xenos' method of treating patients is very special. And in the end, he was discovered. Lily asked Xenos what to do. The protagonist thought for a moment and asked, well, who is looking for him? Zofia answered, according to her subordinates, a girl with glasses and blue hair. She asks everyone in the area if they have heard of healer Xenos. The doc was in a panic. Could this really be the onsen in Flam? The protagonist grabbed his head. Damn. Who knew she was from the Imperial Sanitarium? Levi tried to calm him down and said that maybe he shouldn't worry so much. Everyone in the slums is grateful to him, so she doesn't think they will blab. The Imperial Asylum wouldn't cause chaos like a guide. If they continue to ignore this girl, then maybe that's the end of it? Xenos smirked. He scratched his chin and said, well, maybe I'll have to wait a little while and then we'll see. After a while, Woman reported to Dr. Becca about her search. She said it was useless. She spent every day in the slums, but whoever she asks, they all answer that they have never heard of such a healer. And why did they limit their search to the slums anyway? Becca scratched his chin and said that if this healer was running an underground business in the city center, he would have been reported immediately. If there were no injuries in the monster incident thanks to him, then he definitely has strong connections with the slums. Becca asked Woman how long she had been going through the slums. She replied that it had been 10 days. Becca said, then it's time to stop asking around there. She has other work to do. There's no need to overdo it anymore. Woman was indignant, but how could she just give up like that? Should she contact her superiors and request support? Doctor, Becca said that unfortunately, their information was incomplete to report to their superiors. Woman asked, but would they really have to give up halfway? Dr. Becca confirmed this and said that he had realized one important thing. He raised his index finger and said importantly, it is true that even after 10 days of visiting the slums, nothing can be given away. After some time, Lily was sitting and looking out the window. She called Xenos and said that it seems that the girl from the hospital does not appear anymore. The protagonist said that this is wonderful. The door to the house swung open. Zonda entered and apologized. He dragged a man and said that he was seriously ill. Xenos asked if the man was lying on the street. Zonda confirmed his guess. The man was coughing up blood, and Zonda decided to bring him to the protagonist. Lily replied that if he left him there, it could have caused an epidemic. MC said that Zonda acted wisely. They laid the patient on the bed. The protagonist used magic and began scanning. He said that his lungs were badly affected, especially in the upper part. The protagonist guessed and was scared. He ordered Lily and Zonda to move away. Lily asked Xenos, what is it? Consumption? The protagonist thought, consumption. He asked Lily if she remembered. He had told him about the epidemic earlier. It looks similar. However, it is believed that this disease was defeated by the developed medicine. Xenos thought and scratched his chin. No, it is different. It looks similar, but something is wrong. Suddenly the patient stood up and said, unbelievable. What amazing diagnostic skills. If you can't find even rumors after 10 days of searching, then either such a person does not exist, or everyone is hiding him. If the latter, then everyone in the slums trusts him. He thought that if he pretended to be seriously ill, then someone would help him get to a healer. He turned to Xenos. Oh, dark healer from the destroyed quarter, allow me to introduce myself. He is Ernard Becca, an extra-class healer of the Imperial Hospital. Becca confessed, although to tell the truth, healing magic is not his strong point. The protagonist asked again, a top-class healer? Suddenly the door swung open and a scream was heard. Dr. Becca. Vuman was standing in the doorway. The protagonist saw her and said, it's that girl from the hotel in Flam. She recognized him. It's that very healer. Becca was glad. He does exist after all. Becca was surprised. Oh, Vuman. She screamed menacingly. Don't ouch at me here. You pretend to be seriously ill. They carry you away, and she has to follow him. This is beyond all bounds. Dr. Becca laughed, but if he hadn't done that then. He didn't have time to finish and burst into a cough of blood. Becca said that things are bad. The effect should be weaker. It is felt more strongly. He exhaled heavily. The protagonist folded his hands, thought for a moment and asked, how did the doctor bring himself to this? Becca said, it's simple. He took a bottle out of his pocket and said that in order to pretend to be seriously ill, he drank a mixture that simulates the symptoms of consumption. It is quickly metabolized, its effect wears off, so it would not have killed him. He also drank the antidote, so everything is fine. The protagonist asked where he got this mixture. Becca laughed and said that he made it himself, since he had once developed a cure for consumption. The protagonist was surprised and asked again, was it Becca? Woman happily confirmed it. Consumption, whooping cough, scarlet fever. Dr. Becca developed a cure for each of these diseases. Thanks to his achievements, he was awarded the level of extra class. He is an amazing person. The doctor became embarrassed, scratched the back of his head and said, come on, there is nothing special about it. He suggested getting down to business. No matter how you look at it, there is no sign of a medical license here, respected dark healer. Zonde was furious. Doc, I'm sorry. It's my fault. He said that he would detain these two at any cost, and suggested that the protagonist run away. Lily screamed that they would not give them Xenos. They all rely on him here. Becca was surprised. That's the thing. It seems that MC is a local favorite here. Woman suggested to the doctor, maybe ask the protagonist to help with that case? Becca answered her that this was an internal matter that did not concern him. She insisted, that's why. Sometimes it is easier to work from the outside. Dr. Becca thought about it, however. Woman continued, when the doctor suddenly said that he would look for an unknown healer. That's exactly what she thought. The doctor thought about it and answered her. In fact, when he heard about an extra-class healer in a black cloak, he thought of his old friend. But in the end, it was not him. When they discover underground activity, they are forced to stop it due to their position. Well, we need to gather information on the nearby hospitals. Becca saw a cloak hanging on the wall. He asked the protagonist if this was his cloak. The protagonist confirmed and said that this cloak used to belong to his mentor. Becca asked again what the mentor's name was. Xenos replied that he did not know, since he never mentioned his name. Becca said okay. He changed his mind. He turned to Wooman and offered to entrust the protagonist with this matter. Wooman asked again, are you sure about Lion? Becca turned to Xenos and asked if he could visit the Imperial Hospital. The protagonist was surprised. What? You asking to come to the Imperial Hospital? Dr. Becca smiled and said that to be honest, he wanted to ask him for help with one matter. For this matter, an outsider with healing magic would be best suited. The protagonist chuckled and thought. He was called out. Bandits entered the room. Zofia told him not to listen to these people because they were telling him lies. The protagonist looked at them. The doctor introduced himself to them. Becca. From the Imperial Hospital, nice to meet you. He offered Xenos a deal. In exchange, he would turn a blind eye to his underground activities. Linga asked, where is the guarantee that he will keep his word? Levi also asked indignantly, how can they trust one of the state henchmen? Vuman looked out the window and called the doctor. Many beastmen, werewolves, orcs came to the door. They were all armed. The protagonist was surprised. Where were they from? Zofia said, a red flag was hung on the second floor. The protagonist was surprised. A flag? Why was it hung? A red flag means an emergency. Zofia said, come on, try to take our doctor. Levi warned that if they take even one step outside, her people will act at their own discretion. Vuman was scared. Dr. Becca said he knew the protagonist had endeared himself to the slum dwellers, to the point where different tribes had banded together to protect him, something he hadn't expected. He wasn't sure anyone had ever done that before. The doctor bowed humbly and asked to be forgiven. He said he had been unforgivably rude. Was it possible to approach the protagonist with a pure request? He was willing to negotiate and pay him a reward. The protagonist thought for a moment and said, okay, so be it. Lilu exclaimed, Xenos. Zofia screamed, was the doc sure about that? The protagonist said they had something to offer now in exchange for keeping quiet about the underground activities. And he himself was interested in seeing the Imperial Hospital. Besides, the doctor himself had pretended to be seriously ill, although instead, he could easily have framed someone else by poisoning him. The fact that he didn't do that speaks in his favor. Becca scratched his head and said he couldn't resist trying it on himself. The protagonist recalled that during the tuberculosis epidemic, medicine was distributed in the slums for free, and this saved many lives. He asked the doctor, was it he who did it then? Woman happily confirmed this and said that many were against it, but the doctor personally distributed the medicine in the slums. The protagonist summed up, and the last thing. Xenos asked the doctor, did he know the protagonist's mentor? Becca answered that if MC went to the Imperial Hospital, they could discuss everything in detail there. Xenos called the doctor a sneaky guy and asked, in the end, this is still a deal, right? Becca confirmed this and extended his hand to the protagonist. Welcome to the Imperial Hospital. Dark Healer Xenos. They brought the protagonist to the Imperial Hospital, the healer's headquarters, located in the administrative area of the privileged aristocratic district. Xenos looked around and said it was impressive. Woman explained that it was a large area, so it was easy to get lost. Dr. Becca suggested going to his lab first. The three of them headed there. The protagonist said that his head was spinning from such splendor. He asked if there was a darker, smaller, more secluded place. Woman smiled and said that it sounded like a recluse's place. They went up on a transparent elevator, then entered a room littered with books. Xenos said that this room had a calming effect. The doctor asked him not to talk about someone else's room as if it were a recluse's refuge. They sat on the couches and MC suggested that they go over the details of his case again. He asked, is this a missing persons case? Vuman said that an employee of Dr. Becca's lab had disappeared. He did not return home. They tried to talk to the administration, but they did not take it seriously. The doctor explained that asking the Imperial Guard Division about this case would not work, since the nature of the incident was unclear. The protagonist thought for a moment and said, yes, searching for people is not their specialty. The doctor summed it up. They are in a situation where they have no other options but to ask the protagonist to gather information for them. Besides, sometimes it is easier to advance because you are an outsider. He handed Xenos a pass and said that students who have completed a special course have the right to participate in the educational program of the Imperial Hospital upon recommendation. Many people from different departments come there. It will be easier to gather information. MC asked if his identity will raise questions. Becker asked him not to worry about it. He gave the protagonist clothes and said that here he is simply Xenos, who recently returned from abroad. Usually, an identity check is carried out, but the doctor's position allowed him to limit himself to a simple check. The protagonist asked, "So if he does something wrong, the doctor will be held accountable for it, right?" The doctor smiled and said that they will be held accountable together. Tomorrow, classes according to the program begin. In the meantime, Xenos can be located in the dorm room, which is at his disposal while he is here. Woman walked the protagonist to his room. He opened the door. And then Lily appeared. She shouted, "Xenos, welcome back." MC was surprised and asked her, why was she here? Woman explained, Dr. Becca allowed it. You can live here with your spouse or closest relative. Lily happily said, because Lily is Xenos' fiancée. Woman answered, no, she is listed as Xenos' little sister. Lily was upset. Well there. Woman continued, she thought it would be safer if it was an acquaintance, and the protagonist would be taken care of. Xenos thanked her for this. She said goodbye to him, see you tomorrow, and disappeared behind the door. Lily approached the protagonist and said, darling, do you want to eat, or a bath, or maybe her? He asked her if she had mixed something up. She is a sister, right? Lily pouted and took offense. Well there. MC asked her, who did she learn that from? Suddenly Camilla appeared on the couch and said that it was from her. The protagonist was surprised, and she was here? Why did she come? She answered him, of course, just to tease. The protagonist was upset, of course. How could it be otherwise? She showed up at the healer's lair. If she was discovered, she would be exiled. Camilla laughed and asked if she was afraid of exorcism. Would she be able to tease? Xenos answered, yes, she is in her repertoire. Camilla mumbled, well, it's not every day that someone with your healing magic shows up. The protagonist did not hear and asked again, did she say something? She answered, well, nothing. And how did a small request from an imperial hospital manage to grow into an absurdly big deal? He scolded her for only coming and already escalating things. Maybe that's enough? The next day, he was sitting drinking tea. Woman sat down next to him and asked how the introductory part went. He was sitting upset, resting his head on his hand. He couldn't even imagine how to become a simple healer. It seemed like he had a lot to do. She confirmed it. Woman explained that the license system works something like this. First, the appropriate exams at the healer training school, then several years of training, then the qualifying exam for a healer, and finally, getting a license. After all this, there are several options. Work in a department of the Imperial Hospital, gain experience and open your own business, get the qualification of an adventurer, become a military doctor, treat only royalty and aristocrats. Xenos asked, are they all run by the Imperial Hospital, right? Woman explained that those who come here want to do research and education, learn about advanced treatment methods, and also participate in the development and management of institutions. The protagonist grabbed his head and said that his head was spinning from all this. He asked her to tell him about the missing employee for now. She agreed. His name is Alfred. He is her senior comrade, excellent in everything, smart, kind, and caring. Dr. Becca said that he also made a significant contribution to the development of a cure for consumption. He hoped to one day become an extra-class healer. The protagonist scratched his chin and thought, such a guy is really worth looking for. However, doing this blindly is ineffective. Any leads? Woman answered that there are. The protagonist saw a group of people walking past, led by an elderly man with a mustache. MC asked who was there. She answered that it was Professor Goldrin. He is the deputy director of the Imperial Hospital and a senior healer of the 7th class. Xenos was surprised. 7th class? Woman explained that there are 3 levels of healer, each of which is divided into 7 more. The professor is the highest healer class. The protagonist concluded that the professor was a big shot. Woman said that the current director was already old and often took vacations, so the professor actually had the real power. However, since he became the deputy director, the Imperial Hospital has changed somewhat. They welcome the rich with openness, but at the same time, they openly discriminate against other patients. Professor Goldrin pays more attention to politics than to honing his skills as a healer. Rumor has it that he achieved the 7th class by successfully enlisting the support of the major nobility. Xenos thought about it and said that it was better not to mess with such a person. Woman disagreed with him. On the contrary, the protagonist needs to attract his attention. MC was surprised. What? Woman explained that Professor Goldrin may have been involved in Alfred's disappearance. He collects talented subordinates. That's why he suggested Alfred transfer to his lab. Zenos asked again, and Becca allowed? She told, apparently, Becca owed the professor money for financing consumption. And he could not oppose. A month after the transfer, Alfred disappeared. No matter how many times she asked Professor Goldrin, he insisted that he knew nothing. But they think that the matter is not clean. Zenos said that he understood what she was getting at, but how to approach the professor? Woman said that there was no problem with that. If the protagonist proves himself on the program, then the professor himself will contact him. MC was surprised. Isn't it more difficult? Woman was surprised. Does Zenos not realize his level? Suddenly someone called her. Hey woman, what are you doing in the corner? She recognized him. It was Krishna. Woman told him that she was free to eat wherever she wanted. He asked her not to be angry, and said that he came to express approval for the fact that they remained on the side of their group, Goldrin. Krishna looked at the protagonist and asked, "Are you an intern from the special course?" and advised him to try so that the recommender would not have to blush for him. Woman explained that Krishna was her classmate, but since he joined Professor Goldrin, he started to stick his nose up in the air. Zenos told Woman that he had to go. She agreed and said that if he behaved as usual, everything would be fine. The protagonist left for the next lecture. The professor declared, "Well then, let's begin the lecture." The protagonist wondered, does the course start with a lecture for employees? The lecturer continued to tell them that he specializes in healing for adventurers. Today's topic is undead. He will present them with the latest data on the evil spirits that roam the world after death. The undead include zombies, ghouls, and ghosts. Today, he will explain their characteristics and effective healing magic against them. The lecturer chuckled and asked, "I wonder if any of them had fought the undead before?" The guy who approached Woman introduced himself. He was Crescent Wembley from the Goldrin Laboratory. He said that for several years, he had been an adventurer, where he had easily defeated 30 ghosts. Everyone was surprised. Wow. And Crescent asked, "By the way, what would the intern from the special course say?" The protagonist was surprised that the question was addressed to him, but he answered. He said that he could defeat about 50 at a time. Crescent was surprised. At a time? The lecturer asked the protagonist, could he please explain his words? Zenos calmly said, "What is there to explain? The underground labyrinth is full of ghosts. If you use combined healing, then..." He did not have time to finish. The lecturer interrupted him and asked, "Is it really that same Galmanton labyrinth?" MC confirmed, "I think that's what it's called." The lecturer turned to him and said, "This is a labyrinth that is not easy to get into even for a gold-class squad. Only a few squads managed to deliver the treasures safe and sound." The lecturer assumed that Zenos was exaggerating, but the protagonist said that he managed to return with 7 treasures. The lecturer was indignant. "What?" Zenos hesitated and asked, "What's wrong?" Crescent approached the protagonist and, deliberately mangling his name, said, "Hey, you, Zeno? Don't say all that nonsense just to stand out. What's with 50 ghosts at once? If you complete the practical program, they will figure out how good you are," and asked him to watch his words in the future. Zenos told him that he would take it into account. At the next lecture, another lecturer said that he specializes in healing magic circles. A magic circle is a geometric transverse pattern drawn with magic. This effect depends on the shape. The protagonist thought, well, he doesn't know much about magic circles. The lecturer asked which of the students would like to try drawing a circle. Crescent raised his hand and asked for permission to do so. He went out and drew a magic circle. The lecturer said that it was a good job, to draw it in a short time and so that there was almost nothing to redo. Gentlemen, applause. Crescent turned to the lecturer, the teacher, that intern from the special course seemed to want to try too. The protagonist denied it. The lecturer encouraged him not to be embarrassed, suggested that he use this opportunity to learn more. Crescent walked past the protagonist and wished him to embarrass himself. Zenos remembered how the mentor taught him. He told him, frankly speaking, that he did not need a magic circle. In fact, it was an auxiliary tool. However, it could come in handy, so it would not be superfluous to know. The mentor showed him what he had invented for free time. The magic circle will not work if you draw it with insufficient magic power. The teacher thought that the protagonist's magical power should be enough for this. Zenos then thought, yeah, a good way to kill time. What an idea. The protagonist drew the circle that the teacher taught him. Crescent laughed, and what kind of nonsense is this? The teacher was delighted. It's a magic circle. This is not just a magic circle. The effect of enhancing the infinity of the spiral is located on the cardinal points. Could this really be regeneration? Although something is wrong, the protagonist explained that if you lose more than one finger, then this thing restores one of them. The professor could not believe it. Is this theoretically possible? However, the potential of magical power is enormous, and people cannot control it. Zenos objected and said that he can. The lecturer was surprised. What? The protagonist said that he really feels waves of magical power. The lecturer asked, who is he? Anyway, could Zenos come to his lab? The protagonist hesitated. Everyone around was surprised. Krishna was furious. Who did this Xenos think he was? After some time, the assistant told the deputy director that he had something to report. The professor asked discontentedly. What? The assistant said that there is a rumor that there is a magic healer who defeated 50 ghosts at once. The professor was surprised. Right? The assistant confirmed that this healer said so himself. The professor asked again, did he just proclaim himself? The assistant continued. Moreover, he also drew a magic circle, which Associate Professor Faso had never seen. Goldrin asked what his name was. The assistant answered, Special Intern Xenos. Goldrin asked again, Special Intern? Do you think we are suitable for a person for a temporary position, which he got only thanks to recommendations? The secretary intervened in the conversation and apologized. She reported that many zombies were spotted in the Sura cemetery, and there are so many of them that outside support is needed. The professor casually ordered to send someone, and not to distract him with such nonsense anymore. She answered, Yes, sir? But then he changed his mind, by the way. He was able to destroy 50 ghosts at once. If that was true, he might consider accepting him. The assistant complied, Yes, sir. After a while, Xenos came to his room. Lily was surprised. Is he going to kill zombies? The protagonist confirmed it. It seemed so. Camilla said, What a nuisance. Xenos reassured her, Oh well, it was nothing to him. Camilla clarified that she meant the zombies. They were going to the cemetery. This usually doesn't happen. She was very surprised. Lily said that with an empty stomach there was no point in thinking. She brought food and offered them to eat. The protagonist asked, Is this what she cooked, right? Lily asked, How is it? Xenos said it was delicious. Camilla asked, Can she have more chicken? And also, if Lily is given carrots, it will curse her until the end of time. Lily was afraid of such a curse. The protagonist said Camilla, she can eat solid food. She replied that if she has the courage, she can eat anything. Xenos was surprised. It was becoming more and more difficult to understand her origin. After some time, everyone was gathering at the exit. Woman asked the protagonist if he would go too. The protagonist confirmed this. Woman was surprised. Strange. A special trainee is a guest, so they should not send him to kill monsters. Xenos told her that he was told that this was already decided by the people above. She was surprised by the people above, of course. It seems that Goldrin has his eye on the protagonist. Xenos was surprised, right? But he didn't do anything that special. She told him that he already stood out, and suggested that he just act like he usually does. Krishna shouted to everyone that it was time to go. He said that he was from Goldrin's lab. He will be in charge. The protagonist was surprised and asked, Will he be the leader? The girl answered him, Since this is an emergency meeting, they could not find a healer of higher rank. Therefore, they assembled a team of young people. They walked through the cemetery in search of zombies. Krishna saw, there they are. There were ghosts and zombies ahead. Krishna rushed to the attack. Attack. Follow me. The girl suggested that the protagonist hurry. He agreed. All those gathered slowly killed zombies. The protagonist said that they kill 1, 2 at a time. This is too cautious. The girl answered that maybe it seems so to him. The protagonist thought that with such a large number of healers, the number of enemies does not decrease, and not only that. One of the ghosts touched the swearing. Someone said that if a ghost touched them, it will suck the life force out of a person. One of the guys asked, Well, what should they do now? Hey, leader, do something, Krishna agreed. The protagonist said that there was no point in killing them one by one. He ordered zombies. Freeze. Krishna screamed in fear. Go away. They were surrounded. Zombies were moving from all sides. Xenos used the magic of the highest heal. At that moment, all the zombies disappeared. The protagonist said, Thank God he made it in time. Thanks to the fact that all the enemies were frozen, it was easier to deal with them. Woman thought about it. She just told him to act as usual, but she didn't think it would turn out like this. Everyone was surprised. Krishna laughed and asked if everyone saw. He said that for him, it was a trifle. The other guys asked Krishna if he did it, and they admired such magic. Woman shouted at him, Wait, Krishna, Xenos did all this? Krishna said that a special trainee is not capable of such a thing. She was very indignant at this. Xenos looked at his hands and thought that he seemed to have used his magic as usual. Krishna said that it would be unpleasant if all his glory was appropriated by someone else, and it was necessary to inform the people above as soon as possible. Vuman was indignant. Why was he lying so brazenly? Krishna cursed and muttered, Why was he told to watch this intern? The protagonist heard this. Watch. Krishna turned to him and said that there was no place for him here. The protagonist stopped everyone and said that they were not finished with the zombie yet. Krishna laughed. Then there was a knock and a grinding sound, and a huge zombie appeared right above them. He was very scary. Xenos recognized him. It was the Zombie King. The people were scared. Where did such a monster come from? They decided that they could not cope with him alone. They asked to call people from above. Someone said okay, but will they be able to hold their positions while they call? Everyone turned to Krishna. He was in charge. One of the guys patted him on the shoulder and asked him to stop this monster with his magic, like he did recently. Vuman also egged him on and said that they all expect the same from him. The elite of the Goldrun Laboratory must show themselves. Zeno spread his arms and asked Crescent, "Okay, do you want to tell him that no one should interfere with you?" Crescent bared his teeth and replied that the protagonist was smart. Crescent shouted, "Quickly, call for help quickly." He said that he would stop this zombie. The guys said that they believed in him. They relied on him. Crescent approached the zombie and menacingly told him to be prepared for the consequences. Vuman said that Crescent deserved it. Crescent was scared. He used the highest heal and was glad that he made a hole in the zombie. Hooray! Did you see? He did it with the help of his magic. But imagine his surprise when he saw that the hole in the zombie was tightening. The zombie wanted to hit him, but Crescent dodged. He laughed and shouted, "Did everyone see?" Crescent threatened the zombie that he would not lay a finger on him. Woman saw that Crescent was just running around the zombie. She said that now the source of the appearance of so many zombies is clear. The protagonist asked her, "Right?" He answered, "Ordinary zombies lure stronger ones to themselves, especially in the cemetery, closer to the dead." The protagonist summed up, "So the zombie king is to blame." However, although Crescent said that he was able to defeat a bunch of zombies at once, why is he so passive with him? Woman answered, "Because Crescent lied." The protagonist was surprised, right? She said that there is no need to help him. Let him get what he deserves a little. Xenos thought about it and said, but he is still worried about Crescent. The girl answered that she thought so. Since Xenos did not go to call for help, she thought that at least they would pick up his bones. The protagonist told her that she was, however, so kind. The girl noticed that the student did not attack the monster at all. Xenos assumed that he was trying to buy time until help arrived. This was not good. The longer the zombie king lived, the more rotting meat would attach to him, thereby making him stronger. At that moment, the monster dealt a strong blow to Clanton, throwing him aside. He screamed in pain and tried to use his skill. He was distracted, and the zombie took advantage of this. Will this be the end of him? The monster approached him and grabbed the student with his huge hand, lifting him into the air. Clanton screamed at him to let go, but the zombie king opened his huge, filthy mouth, intending to destroy him. The student got scared and howled for help. The protagonist could not watch what was happening any longer, so he decided to intervene. He used the skill Mega Heal, and the monster was torn into small pieces. Clanton fell out of his hand. Umin helped him sit up. He slurred his words from fear, saying, "Who asked to save him?" The girl replied that he asked himself. He was ready to cry. He got angry and told her to shut up. The protagonist understood his state, so he apologized to him. When they took the student to a safe place, MC thought that the zombies were luring stronger ones to themselves, and there must definitely be a top-class zombie here. After a while, when the protagonist returned to the room, Reyes sneezed. Lily asked her if she was okay. The ghost chuckled, saying, "Is it her fault?" She grinned and said what she had seen a long time ago. She put her foot on the table, stretched out her hand and proclaimed, "Here it is, the pouring royal aura. Let the little humans fall on their faces." Then the ghost made a sweet expression and asked the allies, "So what? Do they want to drive her away?" The protagonist replied that no, if they were thinking about everyone's safety, it would probably be better for her to be closer to them. Both Lily and Reyes were surprised by what they heard. The girl exclaimed that she wanted to say the same thing. Ghost was amazed. He wanted to be with Reyes, whom he hated. He really was a strange man. Reyes soared up to the ceiling and said that then she would go and chill out to her heart's content, and flew away, giggling contentedly. Lily worriedly asked her master how was the work. The protagonist answered that it was hard. He did not achieve anything. At that moment, Clanton knocked on the secretary's door. He allowed the visitor to enter. He heard that he made a good contribution to the destruction of zombies. He was proud to have recommended him to the teacher. Since he made such a contribution, it means that the special intern did not live up to his expectations. He added regretfully that his introduction as a personal professor was unnecessary. His reputation could suffer. Clanton hesitated for a long time to tell him the truth, but finally decided to do so. He replied that the special intern was not bad either. He had actually defeated a bunch of zombies and the zombie king. The secretary was amazed. What was he talking about? The student confirmed that it was all true. He had seen it all with his own eyes. He apologized for not saying it right away and went to the exit. The secretary was irritated by what had been said. Clanton cursed silently, thinking that he had repaid the special intern. Meanwhile, Bernard Becker had called the protagonist to him and delightedly told him that he had good news for MC. He had been invited to the Gold Run lab. The protagonist asked worriedly, had he done something wrong? Bernard replied that on the contrary, he had been invited to the group. Uman exclaimed that this was great news. The scientist suggested that it seemed that the extermination of zombies was noticed by this laboratory. He thought that everyone thought that Clanton did it. He does not know the details, but it is true that he was called. Teacher Goldran has many secretaries, probably one of them recommended him. The protagonist just wanted to rejoice at something, but Ernard weakened his joy. He said, "Unfortunately, the interview with the teacher himself still remains." The protagonist immediately wilted. Teacher Goldran is the head of the highest faction of the Royal Hospital. It is not so easy to like him. How complicated these groups are. The scientist continued that the teacher is especially strict about the position and appearance. They say that he has merits as a doctor, but his magical power is not great. His politics and the way he collects money stand out. There are also rumors that he achieved his position thanks to significant financial investments and the support of 7 noble families with whom he interacted closely. The protagonist chuckled, but he is a high healer. Isn't Ernard, a special healer, better in rank than him? The scientist told him that, unfortunately, political rights and ranks cannot be compared. He was noted for the discovery of medicines, and he was placed in a special category, but his medicines are no different from others, so they are not popular. He can even be called the weakest healer. Among the other special healers, there are many more interesting people. If such a chance arises, he would like to introduce him to them. The protagonist told him that he is interested, but he does not have time. The scientist said that since he was called, it is time for him to go, and wished him luck. Umin expressed hope that everything will be fine with him. Ernard supported her hope. He said that there was no need to worry about his skills, but Teacher Goldran really liked to suspect people. This was only one minus. The girl asked if he could suspect the protagonist. The scientist said that they needed to prepare for an escape if he was caught. Umin pulled him up. They wouldn't laugh at that. The doctor admitted that he had bet on him, so he suggested that the girl believe in him. Meanwhile, the protagonist came to the teacher, knocked on the door, and was invited in. Entering the office, he saw the teacher's assistant, who was also one of his secretaries, and Mr. Goldran himself. The secretary asked if he was a special intern. Let him consider it an honor. The head of the highest faction of the Royal Hospital, Goldran, called him for an interview. The teacher asked him what he could do. The protagonist answered him that he could only heal. Goldran looked at him sternly and said, "If he has the power, let him strive for the top." The protagonist asked him again, confused, "For the top?" The teacher said that in this kingdom, healers are treated with honor, but their real interests are concentrated in the ruling class. He personally did not intend to remain only a healer, and soon he would be one of the members of the ruling class. The protagonist asked what he wanted to do when he became one. The secretary politely warned the protagonist not to be rude to the teacher. He replied that they say you need to be treated proportionally to your appearance, the same with doctors. The treatment of the poor and the rich is different. Their lives are not equal. Goldran was silent for a moment, and then said that if he needed him, he would accept him. After clarifying his name, the teacher asked him to draw the magic circle he drew in the lecture again. He explained his request by saying that if you look at the magic circle, it will become clear his understanding of healing magic and even the dubiousness of its origin. Magic circles have different variations, but there are also mandatory rules and principles that must be followed. If his magic circle does not adhere to the principles, it will mean that he has not received a proper education. Their faction consists of good and reliable healers. They cannot let those who are different get to them. The protagonist silently walked up to the table, took a pen and a piece of paper to draw the same magic circle. When he finished, he gave the paper to the teacher and asked him what he thought. Goldran looked puzzled and said that it was quite an interesting circle, and indeed, he had not seen it used, but its structure was correct. He was silent for a while and then said that Xenos should come to him from tomorrow. The protagonist left the office and breathed a sigh of relief behind the doors. He thought about the teacher. He thought he knew everything about him except his name, but in fact, it turned out that he knew nothing about him. Today, he told him to go to the medical department, where he went. When he got there, he was extremely surprised. There were a lot of people standing near the department. He asked what was this. One of them gave the order for everyone to line up faster, and the protagonist recognized him as Clanton. The guy told him that he could only get here because he recommended him, so he should thank him until he died. The protagonist thanked the student and asked him what kind of line this was. He answered that this was the teacher's examination. He examines the patient's line here. The teacher asks them questions and immediately provides them with help. The protagonist wondered, then why are there so many people here? The guy covered his mouth with his hand, called him a fool, and told him not to say anything unnecessary. There are such things as rights. And also, the teacher only goes to the super rich layer of the population. Xenos chuckled. He became interested in how this happens, and saying that he will go and see, he went to the teacher. Clanton tried to stop him, but to no avail. He went into the room where the patient was lying and saw how the teacher was examining his leg, and the patient was complaining that yesterday he twisted his leg on the bed. Now it hurts so much. The teacher finished the examination and said that it looked like he damaged the ligaments. It's a sprain. He chose 3 from the crowd of healers and noted that he thought that 3 of them would be enough for this case. Goldrand put his hand on the shoulders of each of the chosen ones in turn, activated the magic power, read the spell, and put his hands on the patient's leg. The patient smiled and exclaimed that he no longer had any pain. He warmly thanked his savior. At that moment, Clanton appeared next to the protagonist and whispered to him that he shouldn't go where he wasn't asked. The puzzled protagonist asked him what that was just. He meant the teacher's treatment method. The guy was surprised. He didn't even know about it. The professor was engaged in portable treatment. For example, they have a victim. The professor transfers life force from another person to the victim. This method of treatment is called portable. The guy smiled and asked him, "Quite an innovative method, isn't it? This way you can cure a person even if he has little magical energy. The more serious the symptom, the more life force is needed. So you can simply take a little life force from healthy people and transfer it to the sick one." The protagonist admitted that it sounded interesting. So that's why so many people want to join the faction. Clanton noted that this was true, but there was another reason. The protagonist suggested that the reason was that the current director of the hospital, the old guy, had confirmed that this was true, and through the elections, people wanted to vote for a more capable, new director. Thus, Professor Goldrun would almost certainly become the new director. The protagonist asked him, "Can I ask him one more question?" "Does he know Alfred?" Confused, Clanton asked again. "Alfred? He seemed to have come from Becca's lab." The professor expected a lot from him, but he suddenly disappeared. Xenos asked if there were any guesses as to where he could have disappeared to. The guy answered that he didn't. The protagonist did not calm down. Maybe something happened before he disappeared. The guy answered that he didn't know that. He was invited to a dinner party, but then he immediately disappeared. It seemed that he decided not to repay the debt to the professor. The protagonist asked again, "A dinner party?" Clanton explained that the professor and his favorites sometimes organize them. If they invite him, you can say that the person has been chosen as the future staff of the hospital. He sighed and said, "How envious." Xenos noted how honest. Later, when the protagonist told Hernand about what he managed to find out, the scientist said that he understood everything. So, Professor Goldrand's dinner party, he had heard about it, for sure, and Alfred was invited to it for his successes. But they are still far from the goal. Hernand smiled and told the protagonist, if so, then he will have to sneak into the professor's dinner party. The protagonist was puzzled. In fact, it is not that easy. The scientist asked him, does he not believe in himself? Xenos thought about it and answered honestly, he does not know. There are those here who make the same cool medicines as he does, but there are also those who are afraid when zombies are larger than usual. Hernand asked again, larger than usual? The protagonist remembered their trip to the cemetery to fight the zombies and what happened there. Then he said that he was also interested in how things were going at the clinic. He needed to get back there quickly. When he sorted everything out, he would need to find out how the master was doing. The scientist asked him to answer what he knew. But at that moment, a bag of money fell from the table. The coins scattered, and Hernand said sadly what a bungler he was. Collecting the coins, he asked Xenos why he decided to become a healer. The protagonist answered that the master had greatly influenced him. He could do nothing but heal. And why did he decide to become a healer scientist? Hernand said that it might sound stupid, but he wanted to make the world a better place with the help of medicine. Because his healing magic was not very good. Healing magic can only help those who are right in front of him. Medicine can help many. They have quite a lot of influence. He paused, then turned to MC again. He had another question for him. There were still coins lying on the floor. If he could, he would pick them up. But unfortunately, he did not have time because of research and meetings. In this situation, which coin would he pick up? While the surprised protagonist was thinking about his question, the scientist addressed him by name and asked if he thought that the price of life was the same as the coins. At that moment, Uman came in and asked if Teacher Becker was here. Seeing them on the floor with coins, she asked if they were busy. Hernand answered no. What was wrong? The girl replied that she was looking for him. He was invited to a meeting. He replied, okay, he will come now. Getting up from the floor, he turned to the protagonist and said that he expected results from him. The protagonist sighed and replied that he would try. At that moment, a dog appeared in the office, which surprised him quite a bit. Clanton came in after her and said that he would let him do his honorable job and help him look after the professor's dog. Xenos grinned and teased the guy, saying that this wasn't his only job here. Was it? The student answered importantly that it was. He not only walked her, but also fed, washed, and combed Mrs. Milk. This dog was very dear to the professor since he let him look after her. It meant that he trusted him. Going out for a walk with Goldrand's pet, the protagonist asked, Did he trust him? Clanton answered. He heard that the professor had been called by 7 aristocrats, whom he knew so well. He envied him. A dinner party with great aristocrats was very honorable. If he succeeded, the day was not far off when he would be invited too. Zenos mockingly asked him, did he want to become successful? The guy irritably answered that he did. That was why he did the work of a doctor. MC wondered if doctors were not those who healed. The student stared at him in amazement, and then said that it was not that simple. At that moment, Bonds called out to him with a bottle in his hand and asked if he was also taking care of a dog today. The guy recognized him and greeted him. The man was indignant. How dare he walk this animal with such a carefree face? Clanton was confused and noted that the professor had entrusted him with this. Bonds irritably exclaimed that he should not look at him like that, turned around and went on his way, staggering. The protagonist asked who it was. The guy explained to him that it was the professor's first secretary. Zenos clarified, the first secretary? Clanton replied that it was hard to believe, but the teacher had known him for a long time. But he did not work, he only drank. It was not worth keeping such a person as the first secretary. At that moment, Bonds called out to him and, saying, let him hold on to it, threw him a bottle. The guy didn't have time to catch it. It fell and broke with a loud noise. The dog was frightened by this sound and started to run. Clanton rushed after it, calling its name. When the protagonist found them, the guy was sitting near the stopped carriage. He was holding the professor's bloody dog in his arms. Almost crying, he kept calling her and calling her. The driver jumped off the carriage and started making excuses that it wasn't his fault. She ran out and threw herself under the wheels. MC walked up to Clanton, looked at the milk and said that she was still breathing, but she needed to be treated as soon as possible. The guy agreed with him, put her on the ground, activated the magic circle, and tried to cure the animal. He used the highest heal skill and summoned the spark of life hidden inside. After some time, he noticed that the traces remained. He did not succeed. The student lamented. The professor adores the beauty of the dog's fur, so he is finished. And he tried so hard to please him. Zenos bent over the animal, extended his hand, used the heal skill, and created a magic circle. The guy exclaimed, what is he doing? The protagonist answered him, he does what the guy sees. Clanton said that she can no longer be helped. Even if he has the power to defeat the zombie king, he will not be able to restore the animal's skin. A minute later, Milk jumped off the ground, as if nothing had happened. The student was amazed. It worked. Yes, as if nothing had happened, even her fur was still shiny. The protagonist said that Hill was made for this. He healed her crack in the rib, but still, it is better for her to rest today. When they returned, the boy fell down on his knees in the yard, exhausted, and thought that a Hill couldn't treat like that. And Zeno said that he treated her as if he were a special class. He called out to him as if he were a special trainee and said that he had to take care of her. After a while, the professor returned from dinner. The secretary greeted him and asked how his dinner party with Lord Fennel went. Goldrand did not answer him, rubbed his forehead and frowned. The secretary noticed that his face had turned blue and asked what had happened. The professor sat down in a chair and asked his subordinate if he thought he, Goldrand, was capable of doing something wrong. The secretary did not expect such a question, was confused and stuttered, and answered negatively, apologizing. The teacher thought about it. He did not know what to do. The aristocrat Lord Fennel approached him and asked to examine his daughter named Charlotte. When the professor went to see his daughter, the aristocrat explained that she had a rash a week ago, and it was only spreading. The doctor examined the girl and realized with horror that she had a tumor on her face. It was a benign tumor that grows to a certain size. It is not dangerous, but it grows and looks like an ugly face. It can be removed surgically, but since the roots are deep, it is necessary to remove a large area of tissue, and the face will definitely be left with scars. The poor girl's father ran up to him, took him by the shoulders and asked if there was anything he could do about it. He was in his debt, so surely he could do something. The professor was confused, calmed him down, and said that he would prepare and visit them again soon. But the problem was that he did not know how to do it without scarring. He wondered if there was anyone who could cure this tumor without leaving a scar. The professor suddenly saw Bonds in the corridor and wondered what he was doing there. The man noticed him and told him that he saw his dog being hit. Goldrand instantly became angry, grabbed Bonds by the tie and was indignant. What did he say? Did he really do it? When will he learn to limit his drinking? Bonds replied that it was not him, but the guy who was walking her, who quickly cured her, and now she is fine. After these words, the professor already knew for sure who would perform the operation on the girl. Goldrand entered his office and was happily greeted by Milk, who barked and wagged her tail at the sight of her owner. He asked the maid if she was definitely hit. The girl answered that it was so. There were even witnesses to it. The professor examined her and noticed that there was not a single wound on her. What if someone cured her and left no wound? He ordered the maid to call the one who looked after her. At this time, the protagonist was walking down the corridor and openly yawning. Uman came out of the office to meet him. He asked her if something happened. The girl greeted him and asked if he would like to go for a walk. The protagonist thought, why not? They went outside and left the city. Once outside, Uman stopped on a hillock from where the entire city was visible at a glance. The girl said that she liked it here. The view was not bad. She fell silent and timidly asked him for forgiveness for being busy with her own affairs and unable to do anything. If she were stronger, she would have helped him to be remembered by the professor. The protagonist reassured her. Nothing terrible had happened. Becker had paid him anyway. And also, otherwise he would not have ended up in the royal hospital. He would not have had a single clue about the master. He was indebted to Becker for saving the people with a cure for red lungs. Uman asked what kind of person this master was. The protagonist himself did not know. He was rather strange, but he taught him writing and reading, told him about diseases and injuries, magic. In general, he taught him a lot and he was indebted to him. They decided to go back, and the girl said that this master is the same as teacher Becker for her. But he only has research on his mind. Until he has a companion, he needs to be watched, and she smiled warmly at the memory of the teacher. The protagonist was surprised. What does this have to do with him? Umin said in amazement, didn't she tell him yet? Teacher Becker is her mother's younger brother. He is her uncle. MC was surprised. He did not expect to hear such a thing. He asked the girl what she was researching. She answered how to properly store medicines, how best to store them, at what temperature and at what humidity. She asked the protagonist, sounds boring, right? He did not deny it, but added that such boring things, on the contrary, are important. His master did this too. The protagonist apologized to her for trying to apologize, but on the contrary, encouraged her. The girl smiled. Sometimes help from others is needed. He confessed to her that he himself asks others for help every day, and he can't even wake up in the morning. Uman laughed and noted that he was funny. At that moment, the aura around him changed, and a female voice asked, does that mean he has another contender for a wife? They were surprised, and rays appeared in front of them. She continued that she expected better from her. 1 star to her. The protagonist asked the ghost not to rate the girl. Uman was very surprised when she realized who was in front of them. After some time, the protagonist and the girl returned to the hospital. They were almost knocked down by Clanton, who, screaming for a special intern to save him, rushed past them like a whirlwind. Rays appeared and noted that his appearance looked interesting and gave him 3 stars. The protagonist remarked that maybe she should stop rating. Meanwhile, the guy fell at Xenos' feet and explained that he was asked to cure the daughter of one of the 7 great aristocrats. He knows about a tumor with a mixed type, right? It seems that such a tumor appeared in the daughter of Lord Fennel. Charlotte has many connections in social circles. You can't leave her like that. The protagonist replied that then you can just cut it out, and that's it. Clanton explained that the roots of the tumor spread very deep and wide in the tissue. It would be necessary to cut out a wide area of the tissue, so a large scar would remain. He got upset and suggested that the protagonist himself try to encroach on the aristocrat's face. He would be killed. The protagonist calmly said, so it was necessary to simply not leave a scar. The guy almost burst into tears. It was impossible. Umin asked, why is he asking for help with this? The student was embarrassed and explained because the professor believed that he cured his dog. The girl was indignant, so he, again, appropriated the merits of the protagonist, like with the Zombie King. The guy began to deny it. He then told the second secretary that he was a special intern. He fell to his knees in front of the MC and again asked for help. He could only be accompanied by 1 person. After some time, the 3 of them were sitting in the protagonist's room. Lily came in and greeted the guest. He asked who it was. Umin explained that it was the protagonist's younger sister. The girl confirmed her words and said that her brother always takes care of her. Clanton admired her. He has such a cute sister. Lily in her naivety answered him that, unfortunately, she belongs to her brother. So even if he praises her, she will not become his. The guy was surprised and asked the protagonist what kind of relationship they have. The protagonist replied that he misunderstood everything. The student said that since she is Zeno's younger sister, then she is his too. The girl reasonably replied that she does not have such a brother. He was embarrassed, noted that it was cruel, and turned to the protagonist. Let the brother say something. MC replied that he is not his brother. In the end, the protagonist agreed to help this idiot. After a while, they were brought to Lord Fennel's mansion in a big black car. The professor arrived with them. Clanton admired that it was very cool. This was an aristocrat's territory. Such a mansion made his eyes darken. He asked the protagonist, he knows what will happen if he loses face, right? MC answered positively. The guy continued that this operation will determine who will take the fate of the next headmaster into their hands. If the 7 lords provide significant support, it is the same as getting the headmaster's place into their hands. The professor looked around the mansion and said that he will not fail. This is what he worked for. When they entered, the Lord himself met them. He greeted the doctor and added that they were waiting for them. Goldren asked him why he called so suddenly. The Lord explained that a small problem arose. Frankly, Charlotte refuses the operation. She locked herself in the room, said that she would not allow her face to be ruined, but he believed that the professor would be able to cure her without leaving a blemish. Goldren hesitated but assured the Lord that everything would be so. The aristocrat summed up, saying that he hoped that he would convince his daughter. He escorted the visitor to his daughter's room, knocked on the door, and told her that the professor had arrived. If they trusted him with their treatment, everything would be fine. He asked if her father had ever lied to her. Charlotte answered that he had said that he would give her a scarf made of firefox fur for her birthday, but he had not. The Lord was embarrassed, and the professor took matters into his own hands. The doctor turned to her, told her his name and where he was from, and asked if she would trust him with her treatment. The girl refused. Had someone sent him to rip apart her pretty face? The professor assured her that it was not so, but Charlotte continued that it was probably the Geese family that was involved. The lady of their house, envious of her attractiveness, Xiume, decided to secretly act in a roundabout way. Everyone was confused. The protagonist asked, "Can she hear what he is saying?" Charlotte heard his voice and thought that there was another one with them. The protagonist, paying no attention to anything, went to the door and told the girl that if she did not want the operation, then they could do without it. Goldran, the Lord, and Clanton stared at him in amazement. Charlotte asked what he meant by saying that they could do without the operation. The protagonist said that anyone would be afraid to put a blade to their face. Her disease was not fatal, so if she did not want it, then they could do without surgery. But if left as is, an old woman's face would simply appear on her cheek. If she gets used to it, she can even become attached to it. Some even gave names to their tumors. He turned around and said that he was leaving. The amazed professor tried to stop him. At that moment, the door of the room swung open. Charlotte appeared from it and asked him to stop. Having invited everyone into her room, she showed her photo, which was taken by a magic projector. Clanton could not believe his eyes. He asked, "Is it true?" The girl said, "If the rash is left, the face of an old woman will appear on the cheek." The guy exclaimed that everything is true, but he was interrupted by the professor, who took a serious look and repeated that it was all true. He added that usually, in about a month, it grows to the size of a fist. The girl did not know what to do. Goldran said that it can only be removed surgically. Charlotte flatly refused such a procedure. She irritably replied that she hates cutting skin and hates pain, and in general, she likes that the rash does not go away. The people present fell silent. The guy with MC thought, "What a capricious young lady." The Lord addressed her in an ingratiating voice. Why doesn't she try to trust the professor? The girl was embarrassed, and then asked, "Is he sure? Where is the guarantee that there won't be a scratch left?" If there are no guarantees, then she does not agree to the operation. She opened the balcony and went out onto the terrace. The father called out to her, but she did not return. Everyone was confused. The protagonist silently followed her out and saw that she was sitting at a table. There were cages with birds hanging all over the room. He approached her and asked, "Does she like birds?" She looked at him in surprise and answered, "Well, she told the assistants not to talk to her." "Who does he take her for?" The protagonist ignored her remark, went to one of the cages, and noticed that one of the birds was injured. He took the bird out of the cage and examined it, saying that it had a broken wing. Perhaps it had been attacked by a large bird. The girl confessed that she had found her in the garden yesterday. She would no longer be able to fly, just like her. If something like an old woman's face appeared on her cheek, she would no longer be able to wear a dress and dance at the ball. No one would talk to her anymore. Almost crying, Charlotte asked why this had happened to her. The protagonist asked her again, did she want to cure her illness? Girl capriciously answered that he should not talk to her anymore. The protagonist patiently said that he would ask her again if she wanted to be cured. Charlotte could not stand it and screamed that, of course, she wanted it, but she did not want a scar to remain after this. And anyway, she had told him not to talk to her. Who did he take her for? MC calmly answered her that he took her for a patient. She is his patient, since she is in a dead end and wants to be cured. He looked at her carefully and sternly and continued that he does not care about her status, whether she is a beggar, a city dweller, an aristocrat, or from the imperial family. The girl was surprised by the way he spoke to her, but remained silent, and the protagonist noted that he is a healer, and treating patients' illnesses is their job. Saying all this, he used a magic circle and his favorite skill on a bird with a broken wing, and before the eyes of the amazed Charlotte, the bird came to life and flapped its wings. The protagonist released the bird from his hands and noticed that it flew away. He asked the girl, does she also want to dance? Charlotte, amazed by what she had just seen, answered the question with a question in surprise. Will she be able to fly? The protagonist answered, if she wants to fly, then let her do it. The girl thought for a moment, then said that if a scar remained, she would not forgive him. She would use her father's power and put him in prison. Meanwhile, the Lord had high hopes for the professor. He asked him to take care of his daughter. Goldran assured him of this with an important air. Charlotte was already fast asleep on the operating table by this time, and the doctor thought that the sleeping pill created by Becker had been very effective. He turned to his assistants and ordered them to get to work. Let them succeed at any cost. They knew what would happen if they made a mistake. Clanton stuttered, agreed, and fearfully turned to the protagonist. He assessed the condition of his partner and told him that he would perform the operation himself. He already had experience. He thought he could handle it. The guy, overcome with emotion, even wanted to hug his adopted brother, but the professor interrupted them. He asked Clanton if he was the one who would be operating. After all, it was he who took care of his dog and cured it, and if so, then he will be the chief surgeon. The guy wanted to object, but Goldran did not let him say anything and ordered him to get to his work faster. The guy took the scalpel, but his hands were shaking terribly. The protagonist noted that if he shook like that, he would injure himself again. Clanton replied that he knew it. After examining the tumor, he said that the source of the tumor was at 3, 7, and 10 o'clock, which meant that something needed to be done. The protagonist stopped him and used the scan skill. After that, he said that he checked the girl inside. The thing is, the direction of the tumor is different in people, so it is better not to get hung up on general knowledge. This tumor is at 3, 6, 9, and 10 o'clock. The guy was surprised. He knew that too. MC replied that it was impossible to perform the operation without knowing about it. He would quietly tell him what to do and let him try to do it. Clanton nodded to him, letting him know that he understood everything. He carefully made the first cut and was confused by what he saw. The professor noticed it and asked what was there. He answered that the source, or rather the root of the tumor, was near the nerve. It could only be removed by cutting the nerve. Goldran stopped him because it could change the features of the face. Unlike skin, nerves are difficult to restore, but if you leave the root, the tumor will appear again. Once the wound is closed, it is impossible to operate again in the Royal Hospital. So what should they do now? The professor paced the operating room and kept thinking. If they left it like this, the roots would continue to grow. Moreover, they would cover more nerves, and it would be impossible to fix it. Then, there was nothing to be done, and he gave the order to the guy to cut. He put his arm around his shoulder and said that this would affect the choice of the head of the hospital. But if you leave the root, the face would become completely unsightly. They could only reduce the damage. They had no other options. He complained about what a bad deal it was. At the moment when the student cut the nerve, the professor grabbed his hand and shouted at him. "What is he doing?" Clanton got scared and said, "What happened?" Goldran exclaimed that the assistant violated the order and cut the nerve. He told him not to do it. Both the guy and the main character were stunned by his behavior. The professor continued that it was all his fault. Let them bring her to the Royal Hospital tomorrow. He will personally perform the operation to connect the nerves using healing magic. Clanton was completely confused by what he heard. He called out to the professor, but he was silent. The protagonist was amazed at how the teacher shifted responsibility to the assistant and made it look like he was covering up his mistake. Goldran told them not to worry. They would say that the tumor was so deep that they had to cut the nerve. But MC objected to him. He said that it could be connected. Let the professor not worry. The Lord saw the wound on his daughter's face and clutched his heart. Xenos reassured him that this scratch on his daughter's face was no cause for concern. There was no need to go to the hospital and perform the operation again. He looked at the professor and asked him with emphasis, "Is this true?" Goldran wanted to ask, "What does he allow himself?" But the protagonist interrupted him and said that the girl is capable of enduring a lot in order to dance again. They were trusted, and they, as healers, must justify this trust. He used the magic scalpel, said that it was time to finish with this, and began the operation. The professor watched the actions of his assistant and noted that it was good work. Finally, he declared that the operation was successful. When the girl opened her eyes, her father rushed to her. She asked him for a mirror. After looking into it, she turned to her father in surprise and said that the tumor had been removed. The Lord confirmed her words. Yes, it had been removed completely. She began to cry and repeated several times that she was very happy. Her father hugged her. He also still could not believe in the successful outcome of the operation. Charlotte asked where the professor was. The Lord replied that it seemed that he was busy preparing for the selection of the head. He did not want to delay him, so he went home. She asked what the name of that guy was. The aristocrat asked again. The guy? The daughter explained, the dark-haired one who had spoken to her. The Lord's assistant guessed that she was interested in the professor's second assistant. It seemed his name was Xenos. She said this name and wondered if they would ever see each other again. At this time, in the hospital, Umin thanked the protagonist for helping her. Xenos was carrying heavy boxes. He said that everything was fine, but it was a bit heavy. What was there? The girl replied that the boxes contained Teacher Becker's trial specimens. They would take them to the storage facility now. He was surprised and asked what kind of medicine it was. She was amazed. He didn't know? But apparently, even Teacher Becker himself didn't know that yet. The protagonist was stunned. Was that normal? Uman explained that it was a trial and error method. The teacher often said that this could lead to new possibilities. She would like him to think about where to store them each time. At that moment, Becker himself appeared and thanked him for always helping. No matter how you look at it, these boxes contained very important specimens this time. The girl was indignant. He always said that. He grinned and teased her. Was that true? Then the teacher asked how the aristocrat's treatment went. Was it successful? The protagonist hesitated. Becker asked again, was he able to gain the professor's recognition? The protagonist replied that he had. Suddenly, Clanton appeared. He called out to his brother, and after catching his breath, said that he had just learned from the second secretary that he and the protagonist were invited to Professor Goldrun's dinner party. Umin and Becker were sincerely happy for their friend's success and congratulated him on this event. Umin noticed that the student was depressed. She asked him why he was so unhappy. The guy hesitated. No, he was happy, but there was something. She was surprised. Wasn't an invitation to a dinner party his cherished road to success? He decided not to tell her anything. Instead, he joyfully threw his fists up and confirmed that it was so. If he becomes great, he will fill the entire establishment with workers. The girl grinned and noted that this is why she likes him. He turned to the protagonist, that the dinner party seemed to be today, so they should meet in the lobby tonight. Becker noticed that the boy had become completely attached to them, which he didn't like. Still, he hadn't seen the professor invite anyone to dinner so soon. He turned to the protagonist and said that he had bet on him, and it had paid off. Becker sighed tiredly and continued that the work week had finally come to an end. The protagonist agreed, and that was true. Meanwhile, in the protagonist's hospital, his friends were missing him. Sophia wondered if the teacher would return soon. Linga remembered that he had said that the contract would last a month at most, so she thought he would return soon. Levi admitted that she was so tired of waiting for him that she would soon turn to stone. Sophia asked why they came here every day. Linga was indignant that those had to be her words. Levi said that she could look after the house. The leader of the lizardmen irritably asked her rivals if they could stop chatting and focus on their subordinates. Linga replied, indignantly, that she knew she was saying this so she could stay here alone and sniff Zeno's pillow. Levi said that she was jealous that Sophia was doing such things. But she wouldn't do it to her. The girls were about to quarrel, but Sophia wisely noted that the teacher was not here, so there was no point in arguing with each other. At that moment, a lizardman ran up to them and addressed his leader. Sophia asked him what had happened. A subordinate said that her brother was seriously injured. The building, nearly destroyed by the golem earlier when they were dismantling it, collapsed and Zonda fell under it. They managed to pull him out, but his stomach was pierced by a broken pole. Zofia excitedly said that Xenos would be back soon, so they should try to hold out until then. She ordered her subordinate to find a hemostatic agent on the black market. Her rivals turned to her. Linga said that he might not make it in time. Levi offered to take him to the protagonists themselves. Sophia refused this idea, saying that it was impossible. He was hiding in the royal hospital, and if she went there, she would disturb him. Linga objected. They had an emergency. Levi supported the head of the werewolves. She asked Sophia, did she think he would say that she had disturbed him? Sophia exclaimed, what a good-for-nothing her brother was, and shouted at her subordinate to get ready. They were going to Xenos. She added that he should be ready to pay twice as much for the treatment. In the meantime, Goldran had organized a dinner party. The second secretary asked, does everyone have glasses? Then the professor will speak now? The teacher cleared his throat and announced that the current headmaster had decided to resign next month. Elections for a new headmaster would be held soon. Their faction has the largest number of members, so there is no problem with the number of votes. In addition, Lord Fennel, one of the 7 noble aristocrats, promised to make an effort to influence the advisory committee. The second secretary continued that this means that it has already been decided that their Professor Goldran will become the next head. Soon, they are planning to organize a party with all the faction members. Clanton said that this is amazing news. The protagonist thought about the fact that each invitee was allowed to take one companion, so Lily came with him. When gathering information, she will not arouse suspicion, and in addition, Lily is smart. It will be easier with her than alone. In the hall, there are faction leaders, secretaries, and invitees, their companions, spouses, and lovers. Lily noted that Clanton came alone. He told her that there were so many candidates for his girlfriend that he could not choose. The girl said with pity that everyone rejected him. He irritably told her not to guess. She asked him again, didn't he invite Uman? He exclaimed indignantly, what was she talking about? Why would he invite someone like her? Lily looked at him puzzled. The guy said that he didn't care about anything, he had his brother Xenos, and he would go with him from now on. He took the protagonist's arm, but the protagonist expressed his protest. At that moment, Goldran addressed everyone who had gathered here today, the chosen people of the faction. He declared that if they continued to serve him, a bright future awaited them. He raised his glass and proclaimed that this glass was for their health. Clanton said that he went to flatter the boss and ran away. The protagonist suggested that Lily get to work, to which the girl happily agreed. They began to approach everyone one by one and ask about Alfred. Of all those present, only one girl remembered him. If you think about it, she remembers how he looked after the drunk bonds. The protagonist remembered that this was the professor's first secretary. He decided to question him. Seeing a not quite adequate man on the couch, he approached him and asked if he was Bonds. The man asked him in response, who was he? Lily answered that this was her brother, a special intern. The protagonist told him that he would like to ask him one question. Bonds asked what question? The protagonist said that at the last dinner party, there was a guy named Alfred. Could he tell what happened then? Bonds remembered a guy from another lab. He doesn't know. He was drunk, and it seems that this Alfred brought him water. MC asked if there was anything unusual? The man noted that he did not remember, but he was a good guy. He continued that the newbies do not talk to him anyway. The professor's henchmen told them not to approach him because he is a liar. The protagonist and Lily listened to him silently, not understanding what he was talking about. Bonds continued that it was for the best, pointed to the wine and said that thanks to it, he had a quiet life from Goldran. Lily asked him why he became a secretary. He answered that it was just a fatal connection. The protagonist asked what connection? Bonds started talking, then waved them off so that they would leave him alone. Lay down on the sofa, turned away, and fell asleep. The protagonist said resignedly that he was giving up. Lily noticed that this man knew something. She noticed empty bottles near the sofa, and an idea occurred to her. The girl offered Xenos to get Bonds some more drink. The allies woke him up, offered him more wine, which he did not refuse, and having reached the condition they needed, he praised Lily that she was very good. The protagonist adjusted to his mood and asked what happened next. He started telling her that when he was young, he wanted to become a photographer. Lily played along with him like a real actress, admiring his dream. Suddenly, he fell silent. MC worriedly asked, "What the hell is this?" Lily replied that she would take care of it. She took a full bottle of wine and told her brother that when a man gets drunk, if a girl tells him how wonderful he is, he will immediately spill everything. Xenos was amazed. How did she know all this? Lily simply answered that she learned it from Camille. He thought, what a scoundrel this Reyes is. Meanwhile, the girl brought Bonds to her senses and asked him, so why did he become a secretary? He, barely moving his tongue, chuckled. She means that, but still, for a child like her, it would be too much. She began to cry. The protagonist reassured her that it was okay. She tried hard. He turned to the man and asked him to remember. At the last dinner party he got drunk. What happened when Alfred brought him water? Bonds said that, it seems, they went outside into the fresh air and threw his head back. The protagonist noted that this was a good idea. It would be better for him to sober up a little, and suggested that he go outside. Lily asked him what he was doing. Xenos answered that it just occurred to him that last time Bonds was drunk, Alfred was looking after him. If you ask about what happened then, you need to create the same situation. When the allies took the man outside, he stumbled, fell, and the wine spilled scarlet on the ground. The protagonist wanted to lift Bonds, but he raised himself and turned to the professor. He said, "Look, Goldran, doesn't the spilled wine look like that pool of blood? If he becomes the head of the royal hospital, can he be an aristocrat?" Here Bonds laughed and asked the imaginary professor again if he had managed to gain Lord Fennel's trust this time too. At this time, Zofia and her rivals and subordinates were rushing to the protagonist for help. She noted that she could not believe that they had also gone with her. Levi, who had Zondi on her back, exclaimed, if it weren't for her, who would have carried her brother? Orcs are the best at physical work. Zonda asked his sister for forgiveness. She grumbled in response that he really was a loser. When he recovers, punishment awaits him. Let him remember that. Linga noted that he had gotten even worse and said that they needed to hurry. They needed to go through the back streets. Levi grumbled, "Why did Linga tag along?" The leader of the werewolves replied that she would be more useful than Zofia's subordinates. The leader of the lizardmen understood that the royal hospital was in a special area for aristocrats. Without permission, you can't get in. It would be better for the invasion if there were fewer people. She turned to her rivals and said that she was grateful to them for this time. They continued on their way, and Zofia thought about how they could make it in time. Meanwhile, Bonds continued his speech. He said that the professor shouldn't play the fool. He was standing here now because of that day 13 years ago, right? The amazed Lily prompted the surprised protagonist to play along. The man said, yes, it had been 13 years already, too early for senile dementia. Research did not recognize the day when the life of someone who was marking time changed. It was that very day of the explosion. He moved forward thanks to the support of Lord Fennel. And now he was the head. It was a good move. The protagonist realized that he had heard something important. Bonds tried to say something else, but his strength left him and he fell silent. The allies took him back to the reception hall and laid him on the sofa. Lily asked the protagonist what they should do now. He replied that the man would not wake up for a long time. She asked if that meant that the information gathering was over. Xenos replied in disappointment that it was. At that moment, Reyes said behind them that she understood everything. The protagonist asked her in surprise why she was here. The ghost replied that she wanted to laugh at them. He noted that the mansion was full of healers. What would she do if she was noticed? She said with a satisfied smile that it was more interesting to laugh at them, risking her life. Xenos wondered why she looked so smug. He asked what she understood. Reyes replied that she guessed from Bonza's drunken ramblings. The explosion incident 13 years ago changed the life of the unfortunate researcher. It seems that helping the aristocrat was the turning point. She asked what the healer's help meant. The protagonist guessed, healing. She continued that 13 years ago, during the explosion, Lord Fennel was injured. Was he healed by the professor? The protagonist guessed that this was probably the case. The ghost continued, why does no one know about this? Who knows? There must be a reason. If the noble was hit by the explosion, he must have been seriously injured, but now he is in excellent shape? The protagonist noted that this was true. Reyes wondered if it was possible to heal so perfectly. Xenos spoke, but it is possible as long as the heart beats, right? She told him not to answer her with common sense. So Goldran can heal, although it is hard to imagine. At this moment, Lily exclaimed that she realized something. Because of the explosion incident 13 years ago, the Lord was injured, but he was healed by another person. That person left without saying a word. The professor happened to be passing by and made it look like he was the one who cured the aristocrat. But Bond saw it and started threatening Goldran. The protagonist asked, puzzled, how did this relate to Alfred? The girl thought about it and assumed that, like this time, at the last dinner party, the drunk Bonds blurted it out without thinking. Perhaps Bonds was afraid that Alfred, having learned the secret, would remember it and disappeared. Reyes noted that maybe he was already gone. Lily added that he was so drunk that he didn't even remember what he was talking about. Reyes praised her. She said everything right. The girl was happy with the praise and exclaimed that she was a real spy. At that moment, they heard Clanton calling his brother Xenos. The guy flew into the room and asked them what they were doing. The protagonist answered that they were looking after a drunkard. The student urged them to leave the man and go into the hall. Lily followed the guy. Reyes asked the protagonist what he would do. He wondered what she was talking about. The ghost replied that he understood everything. What was he asking? He told her that he had another option. If there was an explosion, then there were certainly other victims besides the Lord. Goldran could not heal everyone alone, but if the conditions were met, even he could do something similar with the help of life force transfer magic. 13 years ago, at the scene of the incident, when Goldran passed by, he probably saw many victims. Among them were aristocrats. If he helped someone, perhaps it was there that his life changed. But with his power, it is impossible. No, there's only one way. If you transfer the life force of other, dying people, the value of life is not equal. The professor chose life. Reyes noted that this is already a crime. The protagonist objected. Setting priorities is not a crime, but if it is for the sake of saving one, to take the lives of others, then yes, it is a crime. Most likely, at the last dinner party, Alfred also heard Bonza's chatter and came to the same conclusions, and then disappeared. What if there are more survivors in that incident? Having learned the truth about what happened 13 years ago, we can talk about something. Reich suggested, revenge? Xenos said that it was possible. The ghost asked, but if you take revenge, isn't it better to stay close to the target than to hide ineptly? Xenos answered, maybe he is afraid of being suspected. He thought about it and said, Alfred, where are you? Reyes asked him again, what is he going to do? He noted that all this is only from Becker's words. This does not mean that they have evidence, and it is not his job to judge. The protagonist sincerely thanked the ghost. She was surprised. What was he doing? Xenos answered, she came because she was worried. Thanks to her, they understood a lot. Camilla was touched, but she did not show it and irritably objected that he was talking nonsense. She came because it was interesting, and to laugh. Besides, she owed him for the incident with the Zombie King. The protagonist went out to the balcony. Several people gathered there, and among them were Clanton and Lily. He approached them and asked what was there. The guy answered, it seems that something is brewing there. Lily pointed to him somewhere and told him to take a look. Umin stood in front of the guards and insisted that they just need to see the protagonist. The guard repeated to her again that there was a reception organized by the professor. Let her go. She again asked to let them in, and at that moment Levi appeared next to her, loudly demanding to let them in. Lily exclaimed, why is she here? Zofia came up to Levi and called her an idiot. What is she doing, screaming right here? Levi answered, "What else can she do? There is no time to waste." Sophia saw the protagonist standing on the balcony with the girl and told Levi that they were there. At that moment, the professor appeared, assessed the situation, and asked what these filthy beastmen were doing in his mansion. He ordered the guards to get rid of them immediately. The girls stood in a row in front of the guards. Levi and Linga entered into a fight with them. Sophia urged them to stop arguing with the guards, because their doctor's situation would only get worse. Levi said that she would not kill them, let her trust her at least a little. She turned to MC, "Here he is. Let him forgive them, but the matter with him is very urgent." On her back, Zonde was slowly fading away. The dinner guests began to ask who Xenos was. Could this be that special intern? Could he be familiar with beastmen? The protagonist did not pay any attention to this. He asked what happened. Levi shouted that Zonde was seriously injured, and the girl with glasses told her where to find him. The professor sternly asked him what relation he had to these creatures. Clanton assumed that they were mistaken, right? The protagonist ignored their questions and asked Levi again what condition Zonda was in. She answered that he was breathing heavily. At that moment, Zofia came up, fell to her knees and begged for his forgiveness. She did not intend to interfere with him, but her brother could not hold on any longer. She would repay him later, but now she was asking him for help. He told Lily that they were coming, picked her up in his arms and jumped down with her. The professor shouted after him that he was making a mistake. Most of the beastmen were poor. A member of their glorious faction would not help the poor. If he went to them, he would be expelled. MC answered him, "Let them do what they want." Goldran exclaimed he was giving up his position as an elite of the faction. The protagonist mimicked him about his position in the faction and that he did not understand anything, and added that he was just a healer, both now and in the past. He wished Clanton to take care of himself. The guy couldn't believe it all. He kept saying it wasn't true. He was lying. Lily caught up with Xenos, and together they left the professor's mansion. Having found a suitable place, the protagonist suggested putting Zonda here. He began to apologize to MC. Xenos told him not to worry. Sophia made excuses. They didn't know what to do, so they didn't pull out what was stuck. Everything was fine, right? The protagonist praised them. They made a good decision. He scanned Zonda and said that the fragment was stuck in a major blood vessel. If they pulled it out, he would die from profuse bleeding. Zofia apologized to him. He was busy with work, and they set him up. He reassured her that everything was fine. It was his fault that he hadn't been home for so long. Linga noticed that, as she said, the doc didn't make a face. Levi said that he was completely different from the bearded man who put on airs. Zond groaned. Xenos asked him to be patient a little longer, and used higher healing. People from the professor's mansion were watching everything that was happening between them. Clanton was worried about the main character and asked, mentally addressing the protagonist, "Brother, why?" He repeated his question several times. Goldran came up to him and asked, "He is not an idiot like MC, is he?" He repaid evil with good, and therefore he, the professor, will make it so that he will not be able to break through in this field. Clanton bowed his head and said, "That's right, brother idiot. To make a career, to live in a good house with a good girl. He did everything for this, but he realized that brother is different. No matter who is in front of him, he will save anyone." He, Clanton, is sure that his brother is a healer. He exclaimed that even though they don't like him, they say that he is greedy and arrogant, but he chooses his brother. He loudly called out to MC as a healer and jumped down. Having landed, he ironically bowed to everyone standing on the balcony and said that he, Clanton Wembley, was leaving the faction for personal reasons. The professor screamed in rage. What was he saying? But the guy was already running to the protagonist and shouted that he would also help his brother with the treatment. At this time, the revived Zonda thanked his savior. The student fell to his knees and asked, "Is that really all? Why then did he drop everything and rush to help him?" Uman answered, "Because he is the same idiot as usual." But she heard his voice. He was the coolest. He burst into tears. "Let her shut up. It's all because of them." The amazed Zofia asked MC, "Who is this?" He smiled and replied that it was his unbearable brother. After a while, the protagonist Uman and Ernard were sitting at the table. Xenos told them everything he had learned. Becker said, "Well, that's how it is, such a past." Alfred said that he had a major accident in his childhood. Perhaps he was talking about it. He asked when the banquet in honor of the professor's appointment would be held. The protagonist replied that it should be tomorrow. The scientist expressed concern that at the moment the professor reaches the top, if Alfred wants to take revenge on him, he will most likely make a move then. He added that he will also be at this banquet tomorrow. Xenos asked if he will be watching. Becker answered positively, because Alfred is very capable. If he wants something, anything can happen. He even completed many drugs thanks to his ideas. Becker thanked his ally for the important information and added that his work is finished here, and thanked him again for his help. Xenos was surprised. "Is that all?" The scientist said that this was their deal. Let him leave the rest to him. The protagonist said that he was interested in how everything would be resolved. Could he stay another day? Bernard smiled, said that one more reward. Tomorrow they would talk about his teacher. The protagonist understood him. Umin, seeing him off, told him to come to the dorm room in the evening. MC asked her if there was anything else. She answered, "Isn't it obvious?" His friends decided to throw him a farewell party. Clanton, having overdone it with drinks, lay on the table and kept crying and saying, "Brother, brother, is it true that he was hired to investigate the disappearance?" The protagonist answered that it was true. The guy asked again, "Is it true that he knows the Beastmen because he lives in an abandoned city and is engaged in healing?" The protagonist again answered that it was true. He again inquired, "Is it true that he was leaving tomorrow?" Xenos patiently answered that it was true too. He started crying again, fell on the table and started wailing that if his brother was gone, what would he do? Umin noticed that he had had too much to drink. He was moaning. He felt sick. The protagonist noted that he would be fine. With his intelligence, he could survive anywhere. The guy tried to talk to him, then spat, and somehow said that he did not think he was praising him. Then he asked what his little sister thought about this. The protagonist answered that Lily was not his sister in the literal sense. The girl interjected that she was his fiancée. Clanton drawled, "Seriously?" Suddenly he turned pale and said that he was confused. He saw strange things. Umin asked in bewilderment, "Strange?" He pointed his finger into the air and told everyone to look there. Umin squealed that Reyes was there. She saw Reyes. The protagonist asked the ghost why she went out. The student suggested that they not leave. It was just a drink. Umin didn't keep exclaiming that it was Reyes. She was really scared. The protagonist tried to calm the girl down. Camilla was actually nice. Reyes said that he was the only one who could say that about her. She told them all not to drink and disappeared. When everyone calmed down, Umin said that it was a serious problem if the professor had such a past. Xenos replied that it was just an assumption for now. The girl continued that, however, if she were in front of so many wounded, it was unknown what would have happened. Then she apologized to MC. Because of the farewell party she became sad, and also, she will miss him very much. She knew for sure that Teacher Becker will miss him too. The protagonist asked, "Is this true?" She explained that when the teacher talked to him, it seemed like he was glad that he met a real friend. Xenos was touched. A friend? The girl replied that her uncle was a bit of an oddball, so he had few friends and no girlfriend. If he didn't settle down soon, she, as his niece, would worry. After a while, the friends began to say goodbye. Umin asked the protagonist to visit them. He promised that he would. Reyes whispered that she could finally have a drink in peace. She flew up to him and asked him what was wrong. He replied that it was nothing special and hugged his friends goodbye. MC said that he came from a poor background and that he was treated badly at parties, but these people treated him as if he were no different from them. Wow, there are people like that. Camilla asked, "Is it hard to say goodbye?" She, how to say, knows from experience what it is. They meet, say goodbye, and if they are connected by fate, they meet again. And this is repeated throughout a person's life. This is how they realize the vastness and depth of the world. The protagonist noticed that she was saying sensible things. The ghost chuckled and said that she had not lived 300 years in vain, even though she died. After some time, the Royal Hospital began to elect a new director. Goldrand thought, looking at his allies, if they all voted, there was no doubt about his victory. Lord Fennel approached him and greeted him. The professor thanked him for coming to this event. The aristocrat responded, after all, he was his benefactor. He should behave appropriately. Goldrand looked from the balcony at those present and thought that finally, he had come to this. 13 years ago, a magic stone exploded at the magic tool factory. Both workers and passersby became victims. Lord Fennel, who happened to be passing by, and he, getting ready to leave the capital because of unrecognized research at the time, accidentally ended up near the scene of the incident. It was a terrible picture. Groaning people who clearly differed in status. If it were possible to do them a favor, something could change. But at that time, healing magic transferred one's own life force to another. If you heal a deep wound, then the person himself could die. Then the thought occurred to him that if you transfer someone else's life force, the life light of many people will go out, and they will not be able to become witnesses. Then his attempt was successful. He saved the Lord. So he received his support and career advancement. The research was also noticed by the Imperial Hospital, and he received the position of deputy director. The only mistake was that Bonds filmed how he used transfer magic to heal. Bonds then blackmailed him with this photo, and he gave him the position of first secretary. Everything else went well. And now he was about to take the highest position in the Imperial Hospital, gain rights as an aristocrat, and enter the ruling class.